for September 16, 2025 is called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman.
Here. Here.
Councilmember Bergen.
Here.
Councilmember Coombs. Councilmember Gardner.
Here.
Councilmember Hancock.
Here.
Councilmember Jurenski. Councilmember Casal. Councilmember Lawson. Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Murillo. Mayor Pro Tem Sundberg.
Here. Okay,
I'm Katie. I am here. It's Councilmember Coombs.
during this special study session, we will receive a briefing by staff on the proposed 2026 budget. Staff, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Jason Batchelor, City Manager. So as part of our annual budget process, you all hear from 3 of our boards or commissions. And so those are the Citizens Advisory Budget Commission, the Citizens Advisory Commission or Board on Housing and Community Development, and our Citizens Water Advisory Committee. So we're going to start first with the Citizens Advisory Budget Committee. And Janet, are you taking it away?
Janet.
All right, take it away.
I think you're muted, Janet. Nope. Should be top right. If it's okay, I can go. Oh, there. Are you on now? Okay, I can go ahead and start for Janet. Thank you for having CABC come here. Greg Hayes, budget guy, also the liaison for CABC. There are many people that are online in terms of CABC. You're actually going to see 3 different subcommittee reports that are part of this. The report overview, they're going to look at goals and focus of 2025. That we did do a review of the 2026 budget and the recommendations. They got to see the exact same one-on-one packet that you all saw. So we went through that. And then we've got 3 different subcommittees, the role of government for outsourcing, efficiencies and revenue generation. You'll hear from them in a bit. The budget workshop was July 22nd and 23rd, staff-led CBCs through the same one-on-one packet that you all received. Staff recommendations were highly regarded, and we recommended approval of the city manager's budget as presented. So with that, let's start in with the subcommittee reports. We're going to start with the role of government for outsourcing, and I'm going to turn it over to James Matson.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So I'm Jim Matson. I was the chair of this subcommittee, the role of government for outsourcing. And our intent was to follow on from the outsourcing report last year. And if actually, Greg, can you go to the next slide? I wanted to point out also the members of the subcommittee there, that we had a good cross section across the various appointees from across the council. So it was a good group to work with. We were intending in the objectives there to focus on or to follow on from the report last year that was outsourcing for a well-managed city. There was a kind of in-depth study done on the city of Centennial, which does a number of outsourcing of their various departments and looked at how that can be done effectively and some of the pluses and minuses they ran into there. What we intended to do this year was to review the city charter ordinances and other governing documents in order to understand what kind of constraints there might be in the way that Aurora is set up and managed in potentially looking at outsourcing opportunities. So ultimately what we wanted to do was identify if there's some barriers there for outsourcing recommendations or any service adjustments and those kind of things. We did send out a questionnaire to all the city departments and the major budget centers to get information on the documentation to underline their departments in terms of establishing them and governing them. And we have a lot of that compiled in a spreadsheet that's available for review as well. Not all of the city departments are underpinned by the charter. Some are underpinned by ordinances as well as others. So if you move on to the next slide, you'll see some of the findings that we had. Some of these are not going to be a surprise to folks who've been involved in the city government for quite some time. Some of them may be. Some people who haven't been around as much, this may be good information for you as well. The first one is that Aurora is a home rule city, which I think we're well aware of, and that the charter is effectively the Constitution and can really only be changed by a vote of the people. The charter also, really the only departments that are mandated in the charter are the police and the fire departments. It also, I don't know if this is a surprise or not, but the recreational programs and the owning of some recreational facilities is also mentioned and identified in the charter, as well as a number of specific boards and commissions. Some examples of those are there on the list as well. The charter itself does not dictate staffing levels. They may dictate the types of positions in some of the departments, specifically police and fire, but the actual staffing levels themselves are not dictated by the charter. The public safety staffing itself is tied to a sales tax also. So even though the public safety staffing levels may be established by ordinance, because that ordinance became associated with a tax, a vote is actually required to change the staffing level of public safety, essentially the police. And so there are some interplays between the charter and the ordinances that may make it difficult to change the way that things are set up in the city, or just more things may need to be accommodated than in some of the other departments. Also, something that's identified in the charter, and again, this may or may not be well known, is that the city council has the authority to consolidate or merge departments to the effect of achieving efficiencies upon recommendation of the city manager. I'm sure that's probably happened either in the recent past or the distant past, but city manager has a purview to look across the departments, given the form of government we have, and identify where efficiencies can be had and make recommendations for the city council to act on. Some of the recommendations that we have, the next slide, Greg, is that, yeah, we want to continue this study to go a little more in depth. We didn't quite get as far along as we would have liked. We did meet with the city attorney's office also to get their insight into how some of the documents interplay to manage the city or to set up the framework for the city. The next year, we would like to look at some specific and identify some specific outsourcing opportunities that would be maybe easier to implement given the framework that we've identified, or the framework that's there with the city. We'd also like to look at some areas where the city and Arapahoe County or maybe some other partners can consolidate services. I think the city attorney pointed out the forensics center that's a combination of city and counties in the area and how well that works. So there may be some other areas there that we could identify to gain some efficiencies. We'd also like to look at identifying some outsourcing scenarios and where those things, again, may be able to help gain some efficiencies for operating the city in various areas, potentially using Centennial or maybe some other cities as a model. And then that's kind of, we think there's still a fair amount more that we could delve into here and intend on picking that up with next year's group. So I think I'll kind of hold off questions until the very end, let other folks get through things. And we have next up is John Scott as the chair of the Efficiencies Subcommittee.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Council and Mayor. Appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. I was chair of the Efficiency Subcommittee. I really appreciate those alongside me on the subcommittee. And I would refer each of you to page H11 in the budget book. That is where our subcommittee report was found, and I would highly encourage you to look at that page and our report as I give, because this is simply a summary. We had, next slide, please, 4 key areas of improvement, and all of these had to do with our goal, which is to get actionable steps to streamline operations, reduce costs, and without negatively impacting the services we offer to the citizens. We wanted to identify short-term and long-term budget efficiencies, not just both for the here and now and for the future. And then we compared it with other cities, either geographical cities like Denver, population similarities like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which has almost the same population level as we do and budget levels. Other cities with budget similarities like Plano, Texas, Sunnyvale, California. We compared those to help guide our recommendations. And as I mentioned, provide actionable steps to streamline operations, reduce costs, improve service delivery. Our goal is not to cripple the city or its budget, but also to streamline operations and reduce costs. Next slide, please. Some of our findings is we would recommend a little bit more data analysis on potential underutilized facilities and help them provide for potential consolidation, repurposing, or liquidation, while also high reliance on outside consulting firms. We have a recommendation in here that many studies could be completed by city staff or a mix of expert and citizens committees, utilizing things like the Citizens Advisory Budget Committee, the Business Advisory Business Advisory Board, the Planning Commission, as well as industry experts, which could potentially save hundreds of thousands of dollars on outside consulting firm costs. Technology and data integration can be further developed for efficiency gains as technology improves. I think our processes can, not only for efficiency's sake, but for budgetary sake as well. Next slide, please. We have recommendations in our report. It's a short 3-page report, but for each of our recommendations, we expand on an action and a goal. And I would encourage you to look at each of those. I'm simply going to highlight and summarize the 7 recommendations that we put up, and also point you to page, I believe it's H13 in the budget book to see the actual, it's just a couple sentences for each, but the action and the goal. Here's the recommendation. Support budget office's proposed 2026 departmental cuts. They put a lot of work in, they know what they're doing, and we would support those 2026 departmental cuts. Number 2, consolidate or repurpose underused facilities. We have some more information in our report. Build in-house capacity to reduce consulting costs. Publish an annual consulting report. We would recommend that. Number 4, improve permitting, licensing, and inspection through automation. And I do understand we do some of that already in a good way, but expanding that potentially through the Access Aurora platform. We would recommend that. And then conduct grant and subsidy review for efficiency. Kind of went off of, and we appreciate much of the information that has been implemented from last year's grant and subsidy review. And then develop citywide data integration system, much like Denver's Smart City, or there's other cities that we could use as a template framework for that. And finally, explore collaborative partnerships, whether it's intergovernmental agreements, regionals with the city, county, or state, or even private partnerships where we could utilize schools or their facilities or churches and their facilities in a way where we share services and share costs. I believe that's my last slide, and I'll turn that over to Deborah Johnson for the Revenue Generation Subcommittee.
Thank you, Jono. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Deborah Johnson, and I'm presenting on behalf of the Revenue Generation Committee. The members of the subcommittee are listed on this slide. Next slide. This subcommittee realizes Council has put a lot of effort into Build Aurora. While we understand the need for capital projects, we feel the timing is problematic. In light of the 2026 budget deficit, we looked at long-term and short-term revenue options. In the short term, we propose prioritizing consumption and user-based fees. As for long-term solution, we suggest very defined purposes that align with voter priorities. Next slide. A quick summary of our recommendations: update the city revenue structure to include consumption-based fees, which give constituents the opportunity to opt out. Explore debrucing for specific projects. Colorado Spring voters approved 8 out of 9 debrucing ballot measures for defined projects that addressed pressing community needs. Investigate the creation of a fire district. There are 279 fire districts in the state of Colorado. This is definitely a long-term exercise. Look at a dedicated funding source for the public safety pension fund. Denver has a dedicated sales tax that pays for their public safety pension fund. Next slide. We have outlined several short-term options for your consideration, like an Amazon delivery fee, a nicotine and vape tax, adding additional registration fees on electric vehicles. There are other suggestions in the report. For long-term debrucing, as I mentioned before, the fire district, a mill levy for just fire capital projects. For all of the long-term projects, there are pros and cons associated with each of the suggestions. I also want to let you know that not every committee or subcommittee member has supported all of these findings. City staff has skillfully managed the city budget for years, despite minimal changes to the tax or fee structure. It is time to consider additional actions to increase revenue for the general fund. That concludes my part of the report, and I turn it back over to the chair, Janet Marlowe.
Great. Thank you. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So sorry about that. So in closing, we would like to thank all of you again for giving us this opportunity, and also a huge thank you and shout out to Greg Hayes and his team for all of their hard work on the budget, but also in helping all of us and being available and responsive to the committee's questions and, some of our discussions. Do we have any questions for any of the subcommittees?
Questions?
Mayor.
Councilmember Bergen.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for all the presentations. Again, having served on CABC for 4 years, I understand the time commitment and effort that goes into all of this. I had a question first on the role of government for outsourcing. Jim, you mentioned there was a spreadsheet attached.
Yes, it's available. It was not attached to the report,
okay.
But it's available to be provided, certainly.
Okay, I would love to see that. I think you put a lot of work into it, and I'd like to see that. Okay, and then on the efficiency committee, thank you. It looks like you guys did do a lot of work on that. And I really did appreciate the facility utilization. I thought that was a very good point in terms of just doing an analysis of all of our assets and what purpose they serve. So thank you for that. And then on the last committee for the revenue generation, I would say maybe these taxes and fees don't necessarily align with the majority of council members, but I appreciate you putting time and effort into the different recommendations. One question on that one, did you do an analysis of how debrucing versus sales tax increase would affect different constituents? Because debrucing, of course, is property tax, so that would be, the burden would be more on homeowners than the general population, like a sales tax.
No, we did not look into any of that type of analysis. And if there's more information you would like on it, I think we could work with staff on that.
Okay, great. Thank you again for your presentations. Appreciate it.
Further questions?
Mayor.
Councilmember.
Honey. Yes, I was wondering on that revenue generation, I looked at the report and it didn't look like there were details about the amount of revenue we might be able to anticipate generating from different fees at different levels. And maybe that's more of a staff question of, can we consider kind of digging more into those? I know, many of my colleagues may not support revenue generation through those means, but maybe we can talk about a few that could reasonably get some support and how much revenue we might be able to generate from those for a future workshop.
I would agree with you that that is a staff question.
Mhm. We can make that happen.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have one question, and that is on the revenue. Were there, I know that you mentioned vape stores or something like that, or those tobacco related products. But are there any fees that would be a tax? Are there any fees that you consider that aren't currently, that we don't currently charge for?
We have quite an exhaustive list in the report, and that we tried to look at the fees that were more consumptive, that would give people like a delivery fee. They don't have to have an Amazon delivery. They can actually go to a retail store. So there's options to opt out. So that's what we really looked at.
Okay, let me just say that, I mean, fees are for a specific function of government to cover the cost. And so I think you always have to attribute what cost is that. If not, then it's a tax, and it goes into the general fund, and that would have to go to the vote of the people.
That's correct.
Okay. Anybody got anything else? Yes, sir. Councilmember Maria. I mean, Councilmember Medina. I'm sorry.
One of those.
Mhm.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, just a quick question on your consulting needs, number 3. Did you guys get a list of maybe current or past years, how much money we spent on consulting outside?
No, and I think that's mainly our recommendation is I think it would be very beneficial for you as a council to have a list like that. And that's what we're recommending, is that that list be generated just so we can see exactly what consulting fees, how much we're spending total. And that's something that staff would be able to provide. But on the short term, it's not available. So that was the basis of our recommendation, just to see how much.
Yeah, no, I'd be curious too. That's why I said it. Because I think to your point there is, I think we could do a lot of things internal, but also through community as well. Because I think there's, agencies out there that we can certainly collaborate with that are already doing some of this work themselves, that we can kind of utilize some of the data.
Ruben, we agree. Yes.
Further questions or comments?
Mayor,
Councilmember Hancock.
thank you for the presentation. And I have reviewed it, and you guys did a heck of a lot of hard work, and certainly do appreciate that. Just to piggyback on what Councilmember Medina said about consultants and the money that we spend on consultants, I would also be interested in knowing who those people are, how much we have expended over the past few years, and to see if we can utilize in-house services to save money on those fees. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. No,
Further questions I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
I was just on that point. There is a need for some consulting for sure. We're not denying that, but there is also some efficiencies that we found that could take place in that area as well.
Further questions or comments?
Mayor,
Councilmember Combs.
I just have one more on the technology component. So I know we've invested in a lot of technology upgrades thus far to some of our services in the city to help them integrate. Baby, I need you to wait. To help them integrate into other systems that we already have. I'm wondering if you've looked at kind of what if you have any recommendations for particular types of systems that are still in need of those upgrades and integration.
Yeah, we were just saying that as technology continues to improve at a fast pace, I know things like permitting and other things, the development. I think when the more efficient we can make for businesses, developments, permitting for the homeowner as well as for industry, that would be great. And we noticed that there's, I think, an $8 million earmark for technology upgrades. And there's some other cities in the report, I believe it's Denver Smart City Online System, and then Pittsburgh's AI innovations, and then Anaheim, California, with a population of 350,000 people, so similar as Aurora. They implemented things like e-permitting. I know we've done some things with that, but they cut processing times by 30%. And if we can cut processing times utilizing that $8 million earmark, we think that would not only help city staff, city council, but it also help both the citizen and industry in the city.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Further questions or comments? Well, I just want to thank you all for your hard work in this. It's very important. I was one of those that served on the CABC too a long time ago, back when the earth was cool. And I just want to thank you for all you do, because it's very important work. Thanks. And with no other questions, then Madam Chair, Janet, do you have any closing comments?
Nope. Thank you all very much for giving us this opportunity, and also want to thank the committee. We had some very insightful, lively conversations about these three subcommittees. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, CBC. Next up, we've got Housing and Community Development. Go ahead and share.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Pulliam. I am the Housing and Community Development Manager, and I'm here to introduce Chris Boyd. He's the Vice Chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee on Housing and Community Development.
When you want to change the slide, just say next slide.
Next slide. Next slide. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Boyd. I'm the Vice Chair. I wanted to give folks just a little bit of an overview of some of our programs and kind of our budgets and how they align with the work that we do. And so you can think about it in four different kind of bucket areas. Sarah was generous to kind of give me some talking points to help, because it can get very complex in this world. So our first kind of program that we do within this division is shelter and homelessness prevention. So you'll see we take some of those ESG funds as well as portions of CDBG funds. These are things that go towards funding homelessness prevention and outreach and shelter operations. Some of these funds have supported the new navigation center, which I know has been a big deal for the community and coordinates services and provides a lot of direct assistance to residents experiencing homelessness. So that's kind of our first program area. Our second program area is focused on our community investment financing. And so with that program, it's a combination of our home funds and CDBG funds to be able to finance affordable housing development, rehabilitation, and pre-development activities. And so here in the city of Aurora, through our community investment financing program, we can leverage HUD dollars with LIHTC, Prop 123, and private capital to create and preserve affordable housing. The next major program is our home repair program. That's, again, we capture that from CDBG funds to ensure health, safety, and accessibility for low and moderate income homeowners. Aurora's utilization is that we offer the home repair loan program, minor home repair program, and essential home repair program for those homeowners who qualify. And then finally, we have a public services arm of the division, which is focused on housing, counseling, and financial education. Again, pulling some funding from that CDBG bucket. And so we have a housing, counseling, and financial education program where we focus on pre-purchase counseling, foreclosure prevention, reverse mortgage / HECM education, and financial literacy and counseling workshops. These services build housing stability, help families avoid displacement, and prepare residents for sustainable homeownership. We also have an e-program now that we're doing for pre-purchase counseling. That's also been highly successful, and that has opened it up to more families. And so, just to kind of close real quick here. So taking a quick look at our budget snapshot, about 2.8 million comes from CDBG, which is our biggest bucket. Our home program is 1.8 million, and ESG takes up about 234,000. And so we have about close to 4.9 million to deploy across Aurora's housing and community development priorities. So I just thought we would give an overview for folks and the different funding buckets and different programs that housing and community development is involved in. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Sarah for any questions.
Are there any questions?
Oh, Sarah, Mike Hawk and I have a question real quick, and then I'll go to Councilmember Bergen. And that is, can you give me some examples on the home grant, the grants for home repair for low and moderate income individuals? What is the range of things you're looking at?
Sure. So we start off with our essential home repairs. We do repairs for anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000. The $8,000 is things that don't include a sewer line or water line, and then up to $12,000 would be like water heaters, HVAC systems, and sewer line repairs. And then we go all the way up to our home repair loan program. We will do repairs up to $45,000. So anywhere in that range, from $8,000 to $45,000, we do things like roofs, windows, doors, anything for energy efficiency, and just to keep and make sure that the home is safe and healthy for the resident.
So, and what's the benefit to the homeowner? Is there a lower interest rate on that, or how does that work?
Right. So for the essential home repair and the minor home repair, those are grants, and those are 0% interest. And on the home repair loan program, it is also 0% interest. And the homeowner gets to stay in their home unless they cash out or sell their home. They don't have to make a payment back to us. For the grants, they do not have to repay those. We do put a deed of restriction on the home, a deed of trust on the home, and they have to stay in the home for at least 5 years, just so that we can ensure that they're utilizing the funds in the correct way. But for the benefit of the resident, it creates a healthy and safe space for them, and it keeps them in their home longer.
Okay. So there's if it's a roof issue, then there's no repayment until the property is sold. That's
correct.
Okay.
And generally with a roof replacement, they're doing it in along with their insurance provider. And so we're getting some sort of payment back. So the insurance provides a portion of the cost, and then we provide the other portion of the cost.
Okay. Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I had a question on the ESG dollars that go to the shelter. Are those going to the navigation center, or do those go to Comitas?
So those go to Comitas. They also go towards our tenant-based rental assistance and our rapid rehousing. And homelessness prevention, the homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing go to Aurora Housing Authority.
Oh, to Aurora Housing. Okay. Okay,
And
and then,
Councilmember Bergen, can I just pipe in
please.
real quick? Historically, that's what has happened with ESG dollars. We actually have our RFP open right now for next year. And so we'll be determining where the ESG dollars go for next year. So any shelter provider would be eligible to apply for those. And then we'll be making a decision on where they go based on our criteria.
Okay, so they could possibly go to the navigation center
That's
provider.
correct.
Okay, so then on that, just on the budget that I was looking at, are there funds? Because I was a little bit confused on, like, for example, the ESG approved July 24, and then you have 26 projected. Were all those funds? It says available 234,781, and then saying they're projected again for 26. Were those all expended?
No, so our 25 hasn't been expended. We haven't gotten those grant agreements yet. And what we do is on our projected, we just project level funding until we hear from HUD, and we usually hear from them around May or June in 2026 to tell us what our funds will be for 2026.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Councilmember Hancock. Hancock.
Councilmember Bergen thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Bergen did answer one of my questions, but the second one is like, when we're looking at these funds, the criteria, if people meet the criteria, how many on average are being served?
It depends on the funding source and depends on the need. So for instance, on our minor home or our home repair programs, we serve anywhere from 15 to 20 homeowners per year. On our housing counseling, we're serving over 500 individuals per year. And then for our ESG, we're serving more than 25 to 150 families per year. Just depends.
Further questions or comments?
Mayor, this is Councilmember Lawson.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes, on the home repair, you said that you serve about 15 to 20 people. I guess my question is, with a city of 400,000, not everybody is on a certain economic bracket. Are those the people who are in the most need, like in the maybe lower economic bracket? Because that's not really a lot of people. I know we have a certain amount of funding, but how is that to be? I mean, is it just because of the funding? How are you doing these reviews?
Sure. Anybody that applies is generally eligible as long as they're 80% AMI or below.
So, Mayor, can I do a follow-up? So
Please.
basically, you don't have a lot of people applying, obviously, because there seems to be a lot of people. I know some residents in my ward who need some assistance.
That's correct.
So are you advertising this or
We do it.
or what is how are you doing this?
We do advertise it. It goes out at least once a year in the water bill. We also have had been on the news with our project. Earlier this year, we were on news 7 and 9, and we also are advertising it at the Center for Older Adults and with Parks and Rec, and our code enforcement also is taking it out when they see code issues. They're providing this information to our residents as well.
Okay,
And
well,
just
I would
to
think
be
for
clear,
me, I would like to have something. I would like to have something maybe for the council meetings. I mean, not council meetings, for our town halls, because I'm not sure if a lot of people are aware of it. And there are a lot of people. I know you serve 15 and 20, and anyone that you can help is really essential. But I don't really think it's getting out as much as what you're thinking. And that's just, I'm just looking in my ward. It could be everywhere else.
Further questions? Great, thank you. Who is, for the home grant program, who's the point of contact for that? If we were to refer a constituent, who would we refer them to?
You can refer them to Bianca Lopez.
Mayor, Council, we'll get you all that contact information in the budget questions. We'll get you that contact info.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, thanks so much for your presentation. Really appreciate all you do.
All righty. one more subcommittee presentation. Let me start it up for you. And just because you haven't had enough of Janet Marlowe already, here is the Citizens Water Advisory Committee.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. This presentation summarizes the Citizens Water Advisory Commission, or CWAC, review of Aurora Water's proposed 2026 budget. Thank you for allowing us to present tonight. I don't really probably need to introduce myself again, but I am the chair of CWAC for 2025. We will cover the proposed rate changes, capital investment plans, and the Commission's insight and recommendations. Our goal is to ensure Aurora Water, wastewater, and stormwater services remain reliable, affordable, and sustainable as the city grows. Next. On behalf of the Commission, I want to highlight our thorough review process. We began this journey on July 8th, 2025, with presentations covering the operating budget and capital improvement plans through 2030. We reconvened on August 12th to examine the proposed rates and fees. Throughout these meetings, the Commission engaged deeply with staff, asking critical questions and appreciating the transparency and responsiveness during the process. Next. The proposed 5.4% water rate increase supports critical needs such as infrastructure upkeep, system reliability, and long-term water supply planning. The Commission recognizes these increases as necessary, but is also mindful of affordability concerns, especially during economic uncertainties. We noted that rate impacts vary by customer class, with the highest increases for hydrant and irrigation accounts to reflect usage patterns. Fire protection rates remaining unchanged was welcome, as was the 8% sewer rate increase aligned with Metro Water recoveries costs. The sewer and stormwater rate adjustments also reflect rising operational and regulatory costs, which are unavoidable in today's environment. Next. The tiered residential rate structure introduced in 2021 remains central to our conservation efforts while protecting affordability for low-use customers. In the 2026 budget, modest increases to Tier 1 and 2, along with a larger increase in Tier 3, are consistent with this approach. While most of the commissioners support this phased plan, I want to acknowledge that Commissioner Dingus expressed concerns about the impact of high tier rates on longtime Aurora homeowners with larger lots. It's an important perspective and one we considered carefully. However, the majority agreed that this tiered structure is the best way to encourage conservation across the community. Next. The Commission unanimously supports the proposed increases to development fees, 5% for water, 20% for wastewater, and 5% for stormwater, to ensure new growth pays its fair share for infrastructure. Importantly, multi-family water fees remain unchanged this year, honoring previous City Council guidance. These fees primarily fund acquiring water rights, which continue to be a necessary but very costly investment. As commissioners, we want to acknowledge and emphasize Aurora Water's ongoing commitment to balancing infrastructure funding with housing affordability and economic competitiveness. Next. In the water fund, we face a $122 million gap between projected revenues and expenditures. The Commission supports addressing this gap through a combination of available fund balance, project deferrals, and prudent short-term borrowing. We are encouraged by projected customer growth and the addition of a water resources principle to lead major projects like the Wild Horse Reserve. On the wastewater side, revenue was projected at $124.5 million, but has been updated to $185.5 million with the addition of a $60 million debt issuance. Total expenditures will be $154.3 million, covering infrastructure and maintenance needs across the wastewater and stormwater systems. The increased revenue forecast, including a planned debt issuance, allows us to maintain system reliability and cover rising costs. Aurora Water remains committed to responsibly managing expenses while continuing to deliver the highest quality of service. Next. On the wastewater fund side, the increased revenue forecast, including a planned debt issuance, allows us to maintain system reliability, cover rising costs, and have the funding available to meet financial commitment we have to Metro Water Recovery. Again, stressing Aurora Water's express commitment to carefully monitor expenditures while ensuring the quality of service remains high. Next. The Commission strongly supports the $1.36 billion capital improvement plan. These investments are critical to maintaining system reliability and preparing for future growth, from upgrades to the SCADA system and treatment plants to lead service line replacements and acquiring water rights. These projects position Aurora to meet long-term needs. We applaud Aurora Water staff for their thoughtful, strategic planning and urge continued focus on these investments to protect both current and future ratepayers. Next. This chart, one of our favorites, provides an overview of how Aurora Water's rate compared to other nearby utilities. At the creation of this slide, not all of the municipalities have disclosed their new rates. This will be updated with when the information becomes available. Next. Even with the proposed 5.4 increase in 2026, Aurora's water rates remain among the most affordable in the region. For comparison, Broomfield is proposing a 15% increase, Arvada an 11.3% increase, Colorado Springs 6.4%, and Denver Water 5.5%. Aurora's rates continue to sit at the bottom third of the Front Range utilities. What's important to highlight here is not just where we stand today, but why we remain affordable. Aurora Water has consistently taken a steady, measured approach to managing rates. By adjusting rates annually to reflect increases in operational, maintenance, and capital costs, we avoid the situation many utilities are facing, where years of flat rates have resulted in the need for sudden and extreme double-digit spikes. This consistent, forward-looking rate strategy protects consumers from financial shock, while ensuring long-term health of the utility. The Commission recommends this approach, and we believe it reflects responsible stewardship of the system and respect for our community's ability to plan and manage household budgets. Next. In closing, the Commission, with the exception of the concerns noted regarding high-tier residential rates, unanimously supports the proposed 2026 rate, budget, and fees. We believe this plan responsibly implements the Integrated Water Master Plan, balancing affordability, reliability, and sustainability. We want to commend Aurora Water's leadership for navigating complex challenges from aging infrastructure to climate variability, and for their success in securing federal grants that ease local rate pressures. The Commission looks forward to continuing our partnership with Aurora Water staff and the community to ensure a sustainable water future for all residents. A very special thank you to Marshall Brown and Shawnee Klein and everybody at Aurora Water for their guidance and willingness to answer all of our questions and have open conversations. And that concludes my report. Do we have any questions?
Questions? Well, first of all, I think you do a great job, and I appreciate all you do. One thing that I want to say is that and I've expressed this to Marshall Brown before, is that I strongly prefer doing increases on an annual basis, however slight, rather than waiting until they accumulate and then presenting them. Let's see, Councilmember Bergen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Janet and committee, for your work on this board. I share those constituents that have the concerns about the tier 3, and as does Councilmember Lawson in Ward 5, because we have some larger lots, obviously, that have been in place for, in my ward, probably close to 30 years, some of them, and then in Councilmember Lawson's ward, probably even longer than that. So I think, you know, I have heard from constituents that they feel that the increase was unfair in terms of the percentage increase that was specifically higher for tier 3 versus like tier 4 was only a 1.4%. Tier 2 was a 4.6%. And yet the tier 3 was what, 13.3% increase. So I would have liked to see maybe a little bit flattening of that, but I understand. And I agree with the mayor. We don't want to see huge increases by delaying the annual increases. I think years ago we did that, and we would see, you know, quite a shock in terms of water rates. And then I just want to make one note on the Wild Horse Reservoir, because I can't remember the exact number of what, when we first started the Wild Horse Reservoir, I can't remember the number that we thought we were going to spend on it, but it was, sorry, there's my dog, that we thought we were going to spend, I don't know, let's say 100 million. It is close to now $1 billion for the Wild Horse Reservoir. A lot of that has to do with regulations and a lot of bureaucracy. So unfortunately, we're seeing cost increases. But thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hancock.
Well, Miss Janet, you are the queen of water resources. I mean, anything water, you know about it. And I am certainly impressed with your level of knowledge. I wanted to talk a little bit about, you recognize several key areas of focus that will continue to shape Aurora Water's long-term financial. The sewer debt issuance occurred in 2025 with additional borrowing anticipated in 2027. How are we looking forward? And I don't know if you could answer this actually, with a continued exploration of regional partners like Metro Water Recovery, Wise Infrastructure, et cetera. Can you talk about that just a second?
I don't feel like I can, but I do know Marshall is on here. And so I would actually like to, you know, pull him in and he can speak to that. Because I don't want to say something stupid.
Never. Because I'm wondering if those partnerships will help reduce the amount of liability and expenditures to us if we enter into partnerships with some of these other groups.
Yeah, so great.
Oh, you
question.
are there, Marshall. Okay.
I'm here. So the wastewater world or sewer world, we have a pretty fixed partnership with Metro Water Recovery, like you referenced. We also have a partnership with East Cherry Creek Valley, and we have a partnership with Aqua. So we have a few partnerships in place. We are investigating some additional opportunities in that space, but I will say and they're associated with our reuse projects. So we're looking at expanding one or two additional partnerships a little bit further in that space, but they're kind of limited, the opportunities for partnerships in the wastewater space because of our Metro Water Recovery contract. That one's actually a contract that controls our service area. In the water space, we have, I don't know, a dozen partnerships out there. And we're also investigating a few additional partnerships in that space. But to be completely honest, we are partners with almost everybody in the water space. So Denver Water, Colorado Springs Utilities, Pueblo Water. We're even partners with Pueblo West through another IGA. We're literally probably one of the best examples of partnering that we could find. They do afford us opportunities, economies of scale, for example, and our water system is quite expansive. So yes, we absolutely agree with you. Partnerships are key. We have a bunch. There are opportunities for a few more, and you'll see some you'll actually see one of those coming to council here in the very near future, where we're looking at creating, I'm sorry, a new water authority with 5 partners, including Pueblo, Colorado Springs Utilities, Pueblo West, and a couple of others, and that's on its way to council.
Further questions or comments?
Thanks, Marshall.
Councilmember Bergen, I would like to say that we as a commission do absolutely understand the pressure of the higher tiered. One of the reasons that it was such an adjustment this time is because we were a little out of whack in tier 3. So that's why we had such a higher percentage in tier 3. But we are really, really trying very hard to get everybody to, be a little bit more conservative in their water and that whole kind of narrative. So we absolutely had long conversations about that. So.
I'm sure you did. And I appreciate it very much. It's difficult, when you have HOA requirements of how your lawn is supposed to look, and then keeping it up, and then the conversion, if they are large, is quite costly. A lot of people are on fixed incomes at this time, at this point in their life as retirees.
Yeah. And we tried not to beat up on Marshall too much.
Let me make one quick comment and then turn over to Councilmember Cassaw. And that is that the city of Aurora has a program that's free to homeowners to do. The city will come out and do a landscaping plan at no cost to the homeowner, and so that's.
But it's costly, Mayor, for large lots.
To do it, yeah. But at least the planning is done, and I think there are some incentives out there as well. Councilmember Cassaw.
Janet or Marshall, I really appreciate the work you guys do. So my real quick question is, what are the rates for the late fees that you guys charge?
Marshall.
Sorry, you cut out just a little bit. It was probably on my end.
What are the rates for the late fee that and the water bills?
The rates?
Late fees? Late fees?
Yeah.
Oh, late fee charges. Okay. It depends a little bit. I will have to pull that up. If you can give me a minute, I will pull our late fees up and then be able to answer that, but it'll take me a minute to pull them up. I don't know those right off the top of my head.
Is it per day?
No, it's again,
there's a formula, isn't there?
It's based on what is past due. Oh, Elizabeth is on here too.
Yeah. I didn't know if you wanted me to jump in, Marshall.
Yeah,
so it is,
sure.
Our late fees are 5% on what's owing, what is past due. So whatever at the time when that late fee is calculated is just 5% of what's owing on that bill. That's
Like
past due.
Calculated monthly, I think, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Combs.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had just a follow-up question. It was mentioned the HOA requirements around landscaping. Marshall, I was under the impression that there was some legislation passed in the last couple of years that prevented HOAs from prohibiting the installation of non-turf landscaping. Did that pass?
Councilmember Coombs, that's true. My point is not, they can't prevent them from converting, but if they keep their turf, obviously they can't let it just die.
Right.
And look horrible.
Okay. Right. So anybody on staff can elaborate on that?
Yes. So there is absolutely legislation that prohibits an HOA or a city or anybody else from prohibiting a conversion to water-wise landscaping. So everybody in every setting can convert high water use Kentucky bluegrass essentially to water-wise landscaping. And Aurora does offer incentives to do that. In fact, we offer incentives now even in backyards for people to be able to convert from Kentucky bluegrass to more water efficient applications. There are city codes that require upkeep though of properties. So whether that's turf or water-wise landscape or whatever the landscape is, it has to be maintained. Otherwise, HOAs in some cases will enforce those requirements within HOAs. There are HOA covenants, and then there are city codes as well. So you could get a code violation and or a covenant violation from an HOA if you're not properly maintaining your landscaping.
Okay. I need
And
to
follow up,
I'm
Mayor.
sorry. Let me just turn the meeting. I've got to run downstairs and give some remarks, and then I'll be back up. But I need the Mayor Pro Tem to take over this meeting right now.
Thanks, Mayor. So just a follow up on that, Marshall. I know we have the incentives. At one point, we had as well a program where folks could get, because the incentive doesn't cover labor, could get help with the turf removal as part of that transition. Is that ongoing, or was that kind of a short-term program?
Yeah, great question. We did for a little while we partnered with an outside private entity that was helping with the labor. So that partnership struggled and is no longer in place, but we have revised our rebates now. So they don't necessarily, previously, historically, your memory's very good. They looked at materials and they only covered material costs, and labor was exempted. So they wouldn't cover labor costs. Now we look at just, we place a value on the square footage that's being converted. And then there's a formula that looks at how much water the new landscape uses, and we just provide the rebate based on the conversion. So it can cover labor costs now, in addition to materials costs, but it's highly dependent upon what people choose to do. And the rebates do take into consideration the nicer, more expensive applications of low water use plants with some hardscaping that use very little water. We will give higher level rebates. Some people are choosing to convert Kentucky bluegrass to native grasses. We will rebate that as well, but the rebate amount is lower for those type of applications. So the program's changed a little bit where we do not exempt the labor costs anymore. Now, I should qualify that. Yeah, I should qualify that with usually the rebates do not cover the entire cost of the project, though. They are a partial, they assist in a lot of ways. If people do their own labor, the rebates often will cover the entire project cost, but if they contract out for the labor, there's often still a delta.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Marshall.
Yep.
Any further questions for the committee or Janet or Marshall? All right. Thanks, Janet. Thanks,
Thank
Marshall.
you.
Nice job.
Thanks.
So at this portion of the meeting, we will turn it over to our city manager for his budget presentation. Jason.
Okay, so thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So this is your first inflection point of the night. We've been going for an hour. If council wants to take a break, we can do that, or we can plow right into the next presentation. It's probably about, depending on questions, probably about 75 to 90-minute presentation.
Should we take a 10-minute break, everyone? Resume at 6:15. Is that okay?
That'd be great.
Let's do that. See you all back at 6:15.
Thank you. We'll see you all at 6:15.
Thank you. reconvening at 6:15. Hope everybody had a good break. Deputy City Manager, would you please take it away?
All right. So thank you everybody for being here tonight. I'd like to start by thanking the Budget Office for their work in putting the entire budget together, the presentation. I'd like to thank the boards or commissions you just heard from. They are an important part of our process. I'd like to thank all of our departments, directors, their finance teams for helping us put this together. And ultimately, I'd like to thank council. You'll see why. I think you guys have provided good stewardship of the city and good financial guidance. And so we are well positioned to deal with some difficult times. And I'd again like to thank you all for that leadership. So we'll get started here. Our first slide here on the agenda, you're going to hear from me. We're going to go through kind of what's driving the budget, what's going on. We'll turn over to Greg for some of the more details. And then we're going to go through each of the department groups. We'll go through the council appointees, and then we'll go through public safety, Laura's group, Roberto's group, and then finally end with Marshall and Aurora Water. So that's the agenda for today, and we'll take questions along the way. So going into 2026, as you know, we had a shortfall as we approach the 2026 budget. We've been talking to you all on that. We've been trying to actively manage that to bring that shortfall down. And then ultimately we ended at about a $20 million shortfall. So how we balanced that was we used a number of ongoing and one-time cuts. We did look at some new options for revenue. And then ultimately we also did use part of the recession reserve, which was set aside by council a couple years ago. And then we do have some additions in there. So we have funding in there for staffing at 2 new fire stations. And then we also have some adds for our police department and other public safety functions. And we'll talk to you about that in more detail. And then finally, also today, we'll go through and talk to you about the other funds that we've got, including our Development Review Fund, some of our parks funds. Laura will highlight the Capital Projects Fund, and Roberto will give you an update on the Marijuana Fund as part of his discussion. So that's our kind of our focus. As we approach the 2026 budget, our revenues overall are actually increasing. Now they're increasing very slowly, but we anticipate bringing in slightly more revenue in 2026 than we did in 2025. But our expenditures are increasing more quickly than our revenues are. Those primary costs what are driving that are pay increases. So we have the second year of our collective bargaining agreements for our police and fire, but then we also have wage increases for our the rest of the city. And we are planning to continue our pay for performance, our merit pay program, kind of consistent with levels that we've done over the last couple of years. And so that's included in the budget, as well as increased costs for benefits. Health insurance continues to go up. So we have about a 5% increase budgeted for that. And then we're also seeing inflationary costs for contracts, especially our technology contracts. We're seeing those go up each year. So overall, we have about $4.6 million of adds. Almost all of that is related to public safety. There's the grant match for fire stations 18 and 19. So that would be a fire station in the Aurora Highlands, and then a fire station down south in Blackstone. So that's also in there. We have a grant. We're hoping to hear by the end of the month that we are successful with that grant application, but it also does require buying the equipment and then a match from the city. So that's budgeted in the 2026 budget. We also have funding to stand back up the Office of Police Accountability. We have some technology adds and some positions in the police department. So all told, when you add those costs in, that brings us that $20 million shortfall that I talked about. And so how we balance that was about $10.2 million in cuts, $1.8 million in new revenue, and about $8 million of use of that recession reserve. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Here's a little more detail on that balancing plan. So the $10.2 million in cuts is made up of what we're calling directed expenditure cuts. And so those came from the city manager's office, the directors, and really apply across the board to all departments in the general fund. So that includes the use of 4 furlough days. It does include some direction we got from council to continue to look at our recreation fees and reduce the amount of the recreation subsidy. So we're reducing the recreation subsidy by about $1.5 million in 2026. It also includes the direction we had from council to write domestic violence into district and county courts. And so we're writing misdemeanor domestic violences from the municipal court now into the county and district courts. And so we'll go into some more detail as to how we think those expenditure reductions are going to help us. And then another directed expenditure cut we saw was a 25% freeze or reduction to our travel and training budgets across the board for all departments. And so those are the directed cuts. And then we also went in and asked departments to give us some additional cuts that they have, and they'll go through those. Those are in the budget document. You can see those, but all those are almost nearly in non-departmental, non-public safety departments. We don't have any layoffs. We do have the elimination of 3 vacant FTE in our court admin. We'll go through those, but those are really the only position eliminations we have. With that, Greg will also walk you through our staffing changes. Councilmember Bergen.
Just a quick question on the dental insurance, Lamar signs and auction proceeds. So if I recall correctly, there's probably $500,000 in the Lamar signs for next year auction, maybe the same amount. So is the 0.8 that's in the dental insurance fund?
Yes, and we can get to those exact numbers. It's about $500,000, I think, in the dental insurance, and then I think we'll get you the number of each of those numbers. There's those 3 that are there: the Delta insurance, the Lamar signs, and the auctions are just 3 of them. We also have some other ones that we're bringing to bear. For instance, we are also charging. We're not going to pay the credit card fee for folks that are using credit cards, so that's another one that's there. The dental insurance are actually about $700,000. That's about a one-time $700,000 there. Lamar's about $500,000. The auction proceeds are about $500,000, and so those are those numbers.
Okay, thank you.
And then the $8 million use of the recession reserve. So it's about 28% of the recession reserve. I hinted at this earlier. Again, I want to thank council for your foresight a few years ago in setting that aside. We had some good times budgetarily. We kind of had a good discussion with council, and you all said, hey, let's set that aside. What goes up must come down. We know there will be a rainy day in the future. And so that foresight has served us well. So we're able to kind of balance through. We're taking a multi-year approach with those dollars. You'll see that we still have $19.5 million still available in the recession reserve. And so that's, again, part of our multi-year balancing plan is to make sure we don't just spend that all down in one year. We want to make sure that we're continuing to be conservative in case there's an unforecast, revenue shortfall either in 25, 26, or later. So we'll get into those numbers there. So that's the general approach, and we'll be giving you all some more details here in the coming slides. You can go to the next slide. On furloughs, I just want to kind of give you a little more detail on that. As I noted, we are going to have 4 furlough days. This does not include employees that are in 24/7 operations. So that includes police, our uniformed police, our uniformed fire, our 911 call takers. It does not include our detention guards. So those operations are not included in the furloughs. The reason for that is typically that we're going to wind up paying more because we have to backfill those operations with overtime. So that's part of that, and that just sort of comes with the nature of those operations. We are planning to do 1 per quarter. There are typically, each year, there are 2 months. We pay every 2 weeks, so that there are 2 months a year where we have 3 paychecks. Just through a kind of a quirk of the calendar, next year, we happen to have 3 months where there are 3 paychecks. And so we are going to target the furlough for those months. So that'll be 1 in January, 1 in July, and then the last one in December. And then the furlough in the second quarter, we're looking at sometime in April. We'll be finalizing those details and getting them to you. We'll be making sure everybody knows what those details are, including the public and the employees. But again, 1 per quarter. And then the savings from those 4 furlough days is approximately $2 million of budget savings to the general fund. So a significant portion of those $10 million of cuts included in those furloughs. So next slide. As I said, we do take a multi-year approach. So 2027 beyond, we are looking much closer to balanced. Greg will give you those exact details. He'll give you that full forecast. So we are looking ahead. Those forecasts for those future years do include continued public safety additions. It includes continued funding for employee salary and benefit increases. And then overall, we think the kind of recession, the economic outlook is a little more V-shaped. So meaning we have to kind of get through 2025, 2026, things start to get better in 2027 and beyond. So we need to make sure that we stay vigilant, make sure that downturn doesn't start to go U-shaped a little bit longer, a little bit more pronounced. So we'll keep an eye on that, keep council updated. Councilmember Gardner.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. What is the savings that the 4 furlough days amounts to? And I'm asking, as I mentioned to you in our budget one-on-one, my preference would be to take an additional amount from the recession reserve that council created and not do employee furloughs. So I'm just curious what that amount equals to those 4 furlough days.
Go ahead and Greg, go to the previous slide. So yeah, those are, we get about $2 million from those 4 furlough days. So about $500,000 each furlough day.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. So next slide. So that's again, so that multi-year outlook. This concludes kind of the opening remarks, like I said, and then Greg's going to walk you all through some of the more details, and then I'll pick it back up and we'll start going into drilling down into some of those departments and what they look like. Any questions before I hand it over to Greg? All right, hearing none. I know it's not March 14th, but it is Pi Day. So Greg's going to walk you through, pies. What's a good budget presentation without some good pie charts? So Greg, take it away.
You gotta have pie charts in a budget presentation. All right, a couple really fast. I'm just going to do a high level. A lot of this stuff you've seen before. 2026 all funds sources sitting at $1.3 billion. You'll notice taxes sitting there at 39%. Most of that's in the general fund. You see charges for service at 33%. Most of that's going to be in your water and wastewater funds, and those charges from there. On the all appropriation side, also sitting at 1.3 million. It's a little bit of kismet this year. The general fund makes up about 41% of all appropriations. And then if you look up toward the top of that chart and you see water and wastewater, capital and operating also adds up to 41%. All the other funds are less. For the 5-year capital improvement plan, sitting at $1.8 million, consistent with prior years, 3/4 of the capital spending is in water and wastewater, and it drops off everywhere else. The general fund, the story is still the same. Sales tax is important to the city, and if you add those use taxes, which are basically a sales tax on a specific purchase, like a car or a home, a building, full 2/3 of the money that's in the general fund is based on all of us buying something. So always buy Aurora. Last time sales tax was increased was 32 years ago. Last time property tax was increased was 25 years ago. It's been a long time since we've had rate adjustments. Look at the general fund sources there on the right-hand side, 541.3. Once we look at the appropriations, we got 549.3. That $8 million difference is the $8 million worth of the recession reserve that we're using. The story of the general fund has not changed much. We're still mostly public safety. If you look at courts and legal, police, Aurora, 911, and fire, easily 55-57% of the general fund is based on public safety. So I'm going to go through this very fast because this will now be the 3rd time this year that I've talked to you about the LEED School of Projection. They do about 80% of our revenue, sales, auto use, building materials, other use, property taxes. They give us multiple scenarios and we choose one. We ended up choosing the adjusted baseline as our scenario. And during good times, during ad times, I'll give it a haircut, but during cut times, we will give it a little bit of hair extension. So we increased their numbers a little bit to try to give us a better chance of not having to cut too far. So we're using that. A little bit of interest on the recent sales tax growth. July was a crazy good month, up 13.8%. You know that whenever I come to your budget meetings, your ward meetings, one of the things I always say to the citizens is one-time funds for one-time uses. This was absolutely a month of one-time funds. We had 2 different checks. The 2 largest payments were 2 different checks from companies we haven't had payments from before. And if you take out those 2 payments, we're closer to that 4% range. And we also, because we look at the industries, 11 of the 15 industries we were watching were actually down for the year or for the month. So that's good news. We got some great one-time money. It's not going to help us in 2026. And hot off the presses, August numbers. August isn't quite done yet, but we think August is going to be down a little bit. So I guess it's a good time for me to give you good news now. So let's look at the 2026 ending funds available projections. You'll notice the Tabor Reserve and Policy Reserve are fully funded. The recession reserve is sitting at 72%, given the 20% that Jason was talking about that we used. But we've still got $19.5 million there, and the operating reserve is sitting at about 0.5%. So Jason pointed out that the V-shaped downturn, yeah, we've used funds available. If you look at 27 to 2030, those future balancing actions are as low as I've seen them in years. That's good news for us. Last year, just as a point of comparison, last year when we did the 2025 budget, 2026 was out of balance by $11.5 million. And so to be out of balance by only $2.1 million is great to me. Now we just have to have the numbers come in, right? The V-shaped recession that Leeds forecasted has to come to fruition. So.
Oh, excuse me. Question.
Yes.
Greg, did I just hear you use the word recession?
No. You did not.
Economic downturn.
That's right. All right. All funds operating amendments, actually a net decrease over the entirety of the city. Those two, the $2.3 million worth of ongoing cuts, and then $2.5 million worth of one-time across the entire city. That's about a 0.5% decrease in the operating fund for 2026. On staffing changes are going up. You see the number on the bottom here. It's about 42 FTE. That's almost entirely the fire positions that are part of the SAFER grant that's in the general fund. And if you take out those 34 FTE that are part of that, we're basically flat from where we were last year. So right now, that's about a 1.2% increase across all funds. 5-year capital amendments. The capital amendments are actually a decrease from last year overall. Most of that decrease is it varies across funds. Capital projects fund had a healthy decrease because we had to balance that fund for decreased revenue. Water fund is also decreasing, but you'll notice in there funds like golf fund, 911, some of those other funds are actually going up as well. If you want to get a summary of the amendments, you can go to attachment 12 on B41. If you want to look at the detail behind all of the capital amendments, you can look at page G30. That's starting on page G30. And with that, you're going to hear from all the smart people tonight. Jason, Laura, Roberto, Marshall are going to talk through their specific pieces. Does anybody have any questions for me about the high level before I bring out the smart people again? All right, hearing none, let's run with it.
Jason. Well, actually, Greg, I do have a question.
Yes.
With the funds that we've taken out of reserves, we pay that back, right?
We will have to pay that back, absolutely. Okay. And we will make a plan to do so.
Greg, let's see, I'm back. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. What percentage of our reserves is of the budget?
What percentage of the reserves is the budget? So the recession reserve is sitting at 5% of all the total of $85 million. That's probably in the area of about 18%. bottom line. So it's a healthy reserve. And we're doing, to me, in my opinion, we're doing the right thing with this money. We're using it to help us out in a bad time. We will pay it back, I promise you, Councilmember Hancock.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
All right, so this is going to go walk you through this group of departments and appointees and operations. So that's what we've got coming up. We will start next slide with City Council. And so you can kind of see here, this is what's in the budget for you all. And then you all, we did include the council in both the furloughs as well as the 25% reduction in travel and training. So your budget includes those reductions. So that's what's there. And so there is a slight increase in the personnel services. You'll see that number there. Additionally, council dues and subscriptions are also included in the proposed budget there in one of the appendixes with the detail. So I can stop here and see if there's any questions on the council level of detail on the budget.
Questions of the city manager?
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs. And then Councilmember
Yes,
Burke.
thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so I had a couple of thoughts and recommendations. I know that the across the board is 25% for travel and training. During COVID, when we had to do those significant budget cuts, I believe we eliminated that completely, or maybe we did a 50% cut. And so I'd just like to look at a higher cut on the travel and training for council specifically, maybe to 50% of our current travel and training budget. And then I'd also like to look at our council contingency fees. It seems like council has really, or contingency fund, it seems that council has really gotten away from using that fund in recent years. And so if we can do a little assessment, see how much is typically left. I know it's not a ton of money, but if we're not using it, we might as well not allocate it.
Okay, we'll get those details to council as part of the written follow-up.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On the subscriptions, Regional Air Quality Council, 67,000, is that, like, do we actually subscribe to something?
So there is a regional council. It's my understanding that is sort of voluntary, and so it is a due that we pay to belong to that. But it is something that council
could cut
and revisit if it wanted to.
Okay, I would want to revisit that one. And then also the Regional Economic Advancement Partnership for 2,000. I think we should revisit that one. And then U.S. Conference of Mayors for 19,262, which is different from the Metro Mayors. That obviously not wanting to cut that one, but the U.S. Conference of Mayors.
I thought we'd already cut that.
Yeah, Mayor, I was gonna say, I think that's, thank you for that. Yeah, we are not paying that. It's still budgeted, but we're not paying it. But if council wanted to, you could certainly eliminate the budget. So it's right now it's coming in as expenditure savings, but we haven't reduced the budget. So if that's the direction from council, we can absolutely do that.
Okay. And then just real quick, a note on Councilmember Coombs' proposal on the travel budget. If we're going to cut council's travel budget, I think it should be cut across the entire city. So I think cutting by 25% is reasonable. Otherwise, let's cut in every department.
Okay, Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a clarification, Jason, when you stated that we're part of the furlough, so does that mean that we'll get funds cut from our paycheck as well, because we're not going to be considered, because no matter what we're doing with the city, we're still elected officials, so we're always going to be working regardless because we're elected. So I'm just trying to understand that point. And then my second point, maybe want to put this out, this could cause some controversy with council, is I know that for the our ward funds, I'm not really sure what those are used for so much. You know, we have like a certain amount. I think ward council members have $400. I know that's just like a snap in the back. I don't really use mine, but if we're trying to look at costs, what is that? Who's using that? And what is it? You know, I haven't really used mine. So I was just bringing those 2 points up. But if you could explain the first one, the first question, I would appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. So yeah, you are correct. You all are you receive a stipend each month. And so in discussions with council in preparation for the budget, we'd heard from council. I thought we'd heard from a majority of council that they wanted to participate, at least fiscally, you know, sort of in that same level of cut. So what we would do is work with you all to during those months when we have furloughs, you would see a minor reduction in your stipend. Typically something that's going to be on the level of about 1 to 1.5% of the total, you know, annual stipend. So sort of when you divide that out, it would be the same thing for your monthly. You're probably at about a 1.5% reduction for those 4 furlough days.
Further questions? Okay. We'll
Thank you.
move on.
And yeah, some good questions. As a reminder, anything you all are asking tonight, Greg and team are taking great notes. And then what we will do is follow up with written answers on all this information. So we will get those details to you all in anticipation of the Saturday workshop. So you all have that. Okay, next slide. This is going to move into my fellow appointees, particularly in the municipal court systems. I wanted to start with this one before we go through each one of those operations. Council earlier this year gave direction to for us to begin writing misdemeanor domestic violence cases into county and district court. So starting on July 1, the police department has started doing that. With that, we think that there's going to be a corresponding reduction in a workload throughout the court system. We have estimated that we think that that might be $1 million next year. So that's what we've done is we've included $1 million reduction in the budget in 2026. Court administration has already been anticipating this with the direction from council. They've held some positions vacant in knowing that this change is coming. And so the budget does include the elimination of 3 vacant FTE, so 2 in probation, 1 in court services, and it includes a total $250,000 reduction in court administration. The remaining $750,000 anticipated reduction is budgeted. It is in non-departmental, and then what we're going to do is work with all the principals in the court system as the year progresses, as we see workloads begin to change, to see what they can do in their operations to realize those $750,000 worth of reductions. And then the final note there is that we anticipate an additional $2 million of reductions in 2027 for a total of $3 million, but we'll have more details on that as we kind of get further into kind of the new workload situation in the court system. And then obviously each of your principals in the court system can talk more about that when we get to those operations. So Councilmember Bergen.
Yes. So I guess when we get into the different departments, they'll talk about cuts related to the domestic violence cases being eliminated. Are we able to, I know we talked previously about cases that are really old, going back to 1980 or 1970, 1990. Are those already being cut in the caseload?
I'll let
or should I wait for?
I'll let the city attorney talk about that. I know it's something he's already working with his chief deputy over the criminal division to look at, and I know Pete can talk more in depth on that.
I can hold off on that one then.
Questions? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That was just a high level on the domestic violence, because that obviously kind of provide some context on each of the operations in the court system.
Further questions? Seeing none.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So the next one here, we'll go into each one of the your appointees. I'm going to briefly touch on for each appointee. I will touch on what's in the budget. It's my budget under the charter. I have to provide a proposed budget. So Each one of your appointees could certainly make a case for doing it differently. I try and work well with them. They've all been very cooperative in approaching this budget, but it is ultimately my budget. I don't want them to have to present my budget. If you don't like it, yell at me, not them. But I do also want to give them the opportunity to answer any questions you may have, or discuss any needs that they may have. So for the city attorney, you'll see his budget here. The city attorney is participating in the furloughs. He is participating in the reduction in travel and training. And then you'll see on this slide, the 2025 projections, some factors impacting his 2025 projection. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see his 2026 proposed budget, some changes going on there. So with that, if you don't have any questions for me, I'll turn it over to Pete and he can answer any questions you may have. Okay, Pete, take it away.
All right, thank you, Jason, Mayor, Council. Good evening. I'm proud of the budget that Jason worked through for our department. One of the big things is I heard you loud and clear during the. I mean, it's crazy. It's going to be next week's going to be a year since you guys approved me being in this role. I can't believe it's been a year. But during that time, I'll give you an example. In the last 60 days, we've been sued 17 times. I saw that, Councilmember Bergen. We have not sent any of those cases outside. I have rebuilt the litigation team here at the office, where we are now litigating in-house. You will not have an argument from my team 90% of the time that says it's going to be more expensive to fight this good case than it would be to pay the settlement offer. Because it doesn't cost us anything. We're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep doing it in-house. So that's where the increase in the FTE is. I have moved some things around, but we are at a spot now where we're going to be able to continue to handle the vast majority of our cases in-house. That's also on the water side. We have built out our water team. That's coming out of the water budget. If you have questions about that, you can talk to Marshall. But I'm excited about that as well. We are one of the only cities in the state that has really built out our such a niche in water legal in-house. And that's going to save us a bunch of money. So again, I told you last year that we may need to spend a little money to save some money. But I think Jason will be able to tell you that we're well on our way. And I think we're going to be better off with our, especially our public safety folks. I mean, all of our employees, but our public safety folks, that they know that we've got their back and that we're not going to be having the equation when we come to council talking about how much it will cost in outside litigation expenses to take a case to trial when it's a good case for us. And I think many of them are, and we're going to continue to do that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about any of that.
Questions of Pete?
Who answers my question that I asked?
So good question. I will answer that now. Sorry. Thank you for reminding me, Councilman Bergen. Yeah, we started earlier this year on looking at the warrants that were outstanding. I mean, we're not keeping those cases that are really old. I know that Julie Heckman, my chief deputy over criminal, has followed council's direction and my direction to go through those cases and try to get rid of them, so they're not hanging on waiting for somebody to get arrested and be able to get processed in the municipal court. As they get younger, right, as the cases get 1, 2, 3, 5 years old, we have to look at the underlying facts. It's more of an evaluation at that point, because we want to make sure, especially if it's a family violence case, that there's no other issues. So that takes some time. And that's what we're working through now, is trying to look at those cases that are younger than the ones that are super old. But we don't have any cases that are 20 years old. They're gone. I mean, there's just no way that we're going to, and the way we're dismissing them, as we call it, we can't make a prima facie case. And that's really reality saying is we don't have enough evidence to move forward. And that's just the legal term for that. And that's how we're getting rid of those. So, and I want to applaud the court administrator that she did set up with Judge Day, my fellow council appointee, that we do have walk-in court. This came up at public safety on Thursday, and I think we should advertise this more. But people who do have warrants that want to come in and get those withdrawn or pulled, they can come in any day and go into a walk-in court and talk to the judge and try to get that resolved. So that's process as well. And I think, as we found out from Chairwoman Jurinsky's leadership on the Public Safety Committee, that we did see that we need to advertise that more. So maybe that can help as well.
Further questions? Thanks, Pete. Great job. I really appreciate taking it in-house and not incentivizing these lawyers to go after us, thinking that no matter if the case has no merit, that they're going to get a check.
Okay, next slide. This is court administration. So similar, I'll present this budget and then turn it over to Candace to answer any questions you may have. You'll see on this slide the numbers for Candace. You'll see that reduction in the 3 FTE at the top there. You'll see that she's projected to be slightly over budget in 2025. And you'll see the reasons there for that. And then we're continuing to work with her to manage that and appreciate her work with us and making us aware of what's going on in her operations. Next slide. The 2026 budget, you'll see here again, they're participating in the furloughs and the travel and training reduction, with the exception of our detention guards, again, 24/7 operation. So, we have to make sure we have the right staffing there. And so we included them in that group that is exempt from the furlough. And with that, I will turn it over to Candace to answer any questions that you have for her and the court administration operation.
Councilmember Bergen?
Yes, and this question is not just for court administration, but I'm asking it because of the 3 vacant FTEs that are being cut. So if they're already vacant and you are currently able to handle the domestic violence related workload, I don't understand how that really is a cut, because no one's doing the work. Like, those vacant positions don't exist. So it would seem, out of your current employees, then with the reduction of domestic violence cases, then you would have a cut. Does that make sense?
It does. I'll let Candace talk to this, but I think all of your appointees and principals over in the court system would tell you that knowing that with that workload going down, they're trying to manage their employees, right? So Candace identified that these positions were vacant. The workload was still there probably when they went vacant, but knowing that that workload was going to be going down, she held them vacant because it's easier to eliminate a vacant position than it is to fill it. And now you have to lay somebody off in the future.
Right,
so
but they're vacant, and you're going to continue to have more reduction in domestic violence over 26 and then even into 27. So I don't know.
It's going to be a challenge for her to manage through, and I'll let Candace talk to that. But it'll be a challenge probably in the near term as she kind of grows into that cut. But Candace, I apologize. I jumped in there, but again, I'll just, for all the appointees, I know it's something that they're looking at and trying to. Nobody likes to lay folks off, and I think that's first and foremost in their mind as they're looking at these positions. So again, I apologize, Candace. I'll turn it over to you now and stop talking.
That's okay, thank you. And I want to thank our budget team for working with me. I just felt like it was easier for us to identify positions that we could eliminate or reduce in 2026. We do have several what we call VHBE or VHNEs that are temporary employees, because I really didn't want to hire somebody to lay them off. So we do have several temporary employees. So right now our probation officers are handling a very high caseload that they cannot maintain for a long term. So we do have several temporary positions that are in these positions, but we will be able to give them up in 2026. Okay. So we're trying to transition and do it respectfully with our staffing and with our employees and working through that.
Okay, thank you, Candace.
You're welcome.
Further questions? Seeing none, thanks, Candace. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Next slide is for judicial. This is Judge Day and our judicial operations. You'll see both the numbers there for what's going on with his budget. Again, the court system is participating in the furloughs and the reduction in travel and training. You'll see the numbers there and the factors going into that. And with that, I will turn it over to Judge Day.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, members of council. I also want to thank Budget for all their help and assistance. One of the things I think is important to point out is that we will continue, and we still have a very busy probation and domestic violence docket. We still have quite a few cases that are in our system. They'll be in our system for anywhere from 12 to 15 months. And so we're still handling those domestic violence cases that are that have been filed before that cutoff date of June 30th. And so that will continue for a period of time. One thing that I wanted to point out is we had a judge that retired at the end of last year. I have not filled that judicial position, knowing what was going to go on with what was coming with our domestic violence reduction. We've kept that division open. I've used our relief team members. When I say relief team members, relief judges to fill that workload in that work spot. So technically, I have a vacancy for our bench as an FTE. We just haven't filled it yet. One thing that I want to point out is that there are over, I think, 250 plus cases that have been stalled waiting for a Supreme Court decision as it relates to an equal protection challenge and a preemption challenge. We anticipate that Supreme Court decision will come down hopefully in the next couple of weeks, sometime in October. Depending on what that decision is, if those cases do need to go to trial, we'll have 250 cases that we'll need to bring to trial in a very short period of time. As the council knows, we have to try cases within 91 days. If some of those cases where speedy trial was told, will be much, much less than 91 days. And so there'll be a huge workload probably in Q4 of this year and Q1 of next year. And so it's important to note that we'll need to keep staff available to get through that very busy docket. In addition to the addition of the vehicle registration tickets that will make it to the court, which are mandatory court appearances. I've heard some numbers from APD just from year to date. It's over 4,300 tickets, and those are written into the state. They'll now be written into the municipal court. So if you look at it on a yearly basis, we're looking at 6,000 more people coming into the court that will need to appear to resolve that particular charge. And so there is need. And so there's a lot of still unknown what the overall impact will be with the removal of domestic violence for our court. We hope that we'll be able to be in a position to where we'll meet that $1 million budget reduction requirement for 2026. And we hope that we'll be in a position to make the $2 million reduction for 2027. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions to the judge, Councilmember Bergen.
Thank you, Judge Day. Okay, well, and I don't know if I should ask Pete Schulte, the city attorney, or you, but I know we started July 1 with not taking on new domestic violence. So we're just dealing with those that we have had in the queue. How long, don't those cases take, I think I read 3 months to pretty much get through?
It's a great question.
I'm sure it varies.
3 months to hopefully 3 months to final adjudication, which means the case is tried or some plea is entered. And so there's a final adjudication on it. If there is a guilty plea or a guilty finding after trial because of the mandate of probation, they'll be on probation for another 12 months thereafter. So when I throw out the number of 12 to 15 months, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay. Yeah, that got me confused. Okay. And then, so if I'm sure there's some that are more minor cases, DV cases than others, even that are coming through our court. So those would go probably a little bit faster, I would assume.
It's hard to say. Even a case that may not seem complex based upon the facts or circumstances can turn into a complex case. So it's really, really hard to say one way or the other. It's just left to the individual case.
Okay. One thing I would ask, and I don't know, again, if this would just all court, it would be city attorney, court administration, and judicial, but can we get how many of those domestic violence cases have dropped off since July of this year? And just like if we can get a monthly, like how many, basically how many we're having to deal with every month, and hopefully that number should be dropping.
Yeah, Court Administrator Atkinson is presenting to public safety every meeting. I think it was discussed potentially moving it to every other meeting, but we can absolutely forward that over to council as well, just to keep you in the loop as to what the numbers are for sure.
Okay, that'd be great. And I saw Pete Schulte have his hand up, I think.
Let me go to Councilmember Coombs and then Pete Schulte.
Oh, I think he was going to answer a question.
I think Pete was in answer to CM Bergen.
Go ahead, please.
All right, Mayor, thanks. And just related to that, Councilmember Bergen and council, I wanted to let you know that we are, of course, as you saw in Jason's budget, we are planning to reduce my staff over at the criminal division. And again, I keep asking when we'll win, right? I mean, we'll know. Like at some point, probably in Q2 of next year, we're going to have a realization that the work has dropped off. And at that point, and I've told my chief deputy, Julie Heckman over at criminal, that at some point, when we start having people leave the office, just because that's a training ground for a lot of attorneys coming out of law school, then we just won't fill that position. And I'm initially looking at, I literally just moved one criminal prosecutor over to the civil division and the litigation team. So there's a net zero effect on the budget. I'm hoping to do probably 2 more at a minimum next year, but we're constantly going to be thinking about it as we move in and as the workload decreases. And again, but as Judge Day stated, what the Supreme Court does with some of these cases, we may be really busy Q4 and Q1 coming up, depending on what happens there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can you elaborate on that before I go to Councilmember Coombs?
Yeah, so there's an equal protection clause or the equal protection argument that's been made by a lot of the defense attorneys that state that our mandatory minimum sentences, because they are more than what the state law would provide, that they're not constitutional based on equal protection. And so it's up to the Supreme Court. This was a case where out of Westminster and us, where we got 2 cases that I think Judge Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of them was a motor vehicle theft here, right? Where they said that they were going to get mandatory minimums. And so we're waiting on the judgment. So what happened was the public defender, rightfully so, as a defense attorney, asked the court to hold those cases so we knew what was going to happen with the sentencing if they were convicted after a trial. And so that's kind of what we're waiting on. So I think Judge Day stated it. There's about 50 something cases, Judge, that you said that are in that.
No, it's much more than that. It's about 250.
250. Wow. Okay. So we're going to have to see what happens. And then, my office will be working to try to move, and we'll do an evaluation, Judge Bergen, Councilmember Bergen. I'm sorry. We'll be doing it. Yeah, I just promoted you. We'll be doing an evaluation on those cases. And again, as Judge Day stated, any defense attorney can make a minor domestic violence case into a capital case, right? And that's their right? They have the rights. I'm 100% behind constitutional rights and everybody doing what they're doing. But we're going to try to move those cases that are in that boat depending on what the Supreme Court ruling states.
Councilmember Coombs.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of things, Judge Day. One is that I did notice in the Harcourt budget that you sent me that some of the kind of other costs of employment were kind of maybe not baked into the original budget, as far as like contributions to taxes, health insurance, PTO, those kind of things. So in the 2026 budget, are those built into that 1.5 FTE shift at no net cost? Like, did you guys correct for that, not having those other costs of employment included? And then I'll have another one after that.
Yes, thank you for the question, Councilmember Coombs. And the answer is yes. When working with with budget and what we had available to us within the dedicated revenue fund for problem solving courts, but also what was appropriated by city council for the creation of the Hart Court. We needed to do some shifting to keep our very valuable team members that are part of both the problem solving court team and the newly created team court team. And in order to, because those, as you can imagine, those very talented people are in high demand. In order to keep them, we needed to make sure that we were positioned where we could continue to offer them the employment that they were needing. And then what we had to do was just move some titles and positions within what budgets we had within the problem solving court bucket, along with the Hart Court bucket, to make that work. And so, long answer is we did do that change with no net cost to the city. And I hope that answered the question.
Yes, and I just wanted to make sure too that in the way you budgeted it, that you baked in those employment costs, because it looks like you didn't do that before, which, you know, you still had to pay those costs and you still were within budget to do so. But I just wanted to make sure that this time around those were built in.
And they are.
Okay, awesome. And then the other question I have is, have you all looked at kind of the time spent on the separation of PD app hearings from bond hearings? And has there been any increased time in court across departments, really, but certainly within judicial, related to separating out PD app hearings as a different hearing than the bond hearings? And if so, kind of what is the impact in terms of total time spent doing those separately instead of together?
If I understand the question, there hasn't been any impact within the court's dockets within the judicial department. I'll have to defer to Mrs. Cadiz. I know what you're talking about, and her request is to do both at the same time. But in order to make sure that the process is followed, the process that is set forth by the Chief Justice Directive, in getting complete applications with deliberate review of those applications, we have followed and we will continue to follow the process that is set forth by the Supreme Court Chief Justice Directive. And that is a separate hearing for judicial, for public defender applications. It hasn't had an impact. We just create a different slot within the dockets. They're just not done at the same time. That bond hearing along with the public defender application. It's hard to do a public defender application while you're in custody and have that application completely filled out.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Thanks, Judge Day. Appreciate all you do.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, next slide. Back one, went forward too fast. Public defender, you'll see the numbers there. You'll see the projection. Again, they are participating in the furloughs, travel and training reduction, and you'll see the numbers there. So with that, Elizabeth is on, as well as I think a member of her commission, if there are any questions for Elizabeth or the commission.
Good evening, everyone. Elizabeth Cadiz for the Public Defender's Office. And yes, I am with Acting Chair David Kaplan, who's also in the meeting. I am happy to answer any specific questions about DV reductions or potential DV reductions. I'll just say at this time that we're in a similar boat as the rest of our court partners. You know, we will continue to monitor workload as we do anyway. There is a slight reduction, or there was a slight reduction in our budget this year based on the lack of funding from the Competency Fines Committee. I will say that in terms of what we're doing for the domestic violence, something that's really important to understand is that we're kind of like the trickle down recipient of the DV cases that comes in, right? So we're not feeling an immediate change in our workload just from not having new cases, with the exception of what happens in custody, because we could get appointed at any time. So long as there's a case that's pending, we could get appointed on that case, well after the arraignment. In terms of the workload, we had all done the workload study. I think everybody, prior to the decision to move DVs, was in a position where we really needed more staff. We're not asking for those additional FTE at this time, because we're trying to work with what we have to get through this transition. In terms of the warrants, we can't touch, and unlike Pete's office and Julie's department, we're unable to review the probable cause warrants, but we are trying to make a concerted effort to at least review the failure to appear warrants that we have in our case management system. I know as of last week, we had something like 155 cases that were in a failure to appear warrant status that were DVs. And so we're trying our best to go through those one by one, and where we have support or justification to bring them forward to seek clearing those warrants and throwing out those cases. We intend to do that hopefully in Q1. The other thing I'll say is just we're also affected by the hundreds of cases that are stayed pending the Supreme Court decision. We're trying not to make every domestic violence case a capital case. Thank you, Pete, though, for that little aside. I think everybody should remember that Pete used to be a defense lawyer, so that's not really fair, but that's okay now that he has it on a different hat. But anyhow, I'm rambling. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll just assure the council that we're doing our best to continue to modify or monitor workloads, and bring those changes to you as soon as we can.
Well, I have one question, and that is, so you said that for the failure to appear, you'll be reviewing those cases and and recommending dismissal potentially, but without a trial?
Rather than a trial?
Without a trial, is that explain to me what you said?
Sure. So you've heard about the number of cases that we have in the system still that we're going to have to work through. And there's a good amount that are in warrant status. Those warrants are both probable cause warrants, meaning warrants that were issued at some point, and a lot of times people don't even know that they have a warrant out on them. But then there's the other group of warrants that are the failure to appear warrants, where someone has in fact come to court or been to court, been arraigned. Probably there's a protection order in place at this point and they've missed their court date. A lot of those cases, though, maybe did involve a PC warrant that was from years back. Again, I mean, and we don't have the power to do any of these things on our own, but in those circumstances where we've reviewed the case and perhaps they're one of the more minor allegations, right? These are people who are still presumed innocent at this point. We have a number of factors that we're looking at to include, the length of time it's been since the date of the offense, the cooperation of the witnesses as far as we know, right? Whether or not the witnesses are available, et cetera. Certain factors that, should the judge and the city attorney, might make them ripe, if you will, for canceling that warrant and potentially dismissing them. This is the best thing we can do, right, to contribute to the backlog, because we really are powerless when it comes to the PC warrants, if that answers your question.
Not really. Councilmember Coombs.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure why that didn't answer the question. I understood what was said. But anyway, I had a couple questions. One, I see here you guys are having an increase in the mandatory rate for conflict counsel. Are you still also using folks like similar like hourly contractors for weekend court as well at that same rate, or is weekend court now in-house? And how would that be affected by any changes that come out of the proposal for the 4-day work week, if that were the Fridays off, if that were to go into effect?
So I don't want to, speak out of turn, but I don't think that the 4-10s plan is still the intent of the court, but were that going to proceed? I'm not sure is the answer to that. I don't know that we would experience any cost savings in that regard because we aren't paying overtime for jury trials and whatnot. But in terms of your first question, we have to pay the conflict attorney rate, the state rate, because we have a contract with the alternate defense counsel in order to cover our conflict cases. I will say that because of DVs, we do anticipate, because of DVs going away, we do anticipate a reduction in the need for spending for conflict cases. So that is one thing that I hope, fingers crossed to see. Those are cases where we absolutely have to conflict if for some reason there's, a cross complaint, or a lot of times we've represented, the alleged victim in the case or vice versa, or maybe they're still on probation. Those are cases where we end up having to spend a good deal of money for conflict counsel. So my hope is that will be reduced. In terms of weekend court in general, I think I had even brought this up to Judge Day, and we had maybe even discussed it as a group, but that is one area that perhaps kind of down the road, like Pete was saying, maybe quarter two, if we're seeing a huge decline in the number of cases that are set for weekend court, I could see us having a reduction in spending there as well. Does that answer your question? And I am sorry, Mayor, if I didn't answer your question. I'm happy to take another stab at it.
Okay, well, Councilmember Coombs, do you have anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Well, I think my concern is you have DV cases where the defendant, it's a failure to appear, and it might be multiple times, and of course your witnesses are not going to, it just wears them out, and that's a tactic that people use, unfortunately. And so I hate to see cases dismissed on that basis.
And if I may respond briefly, I see where you're coming from, and I apologize if that was the way that it came across. I hear what you're saying, and I certainly don't want to provide an incentive to anyone to miss court, but those are the warrant cases that will still be in our system, that, some of them do date back 4 or 5 years now, so that if we're doing what we can, right, to try and move through existing cases and trying to locate folks, this is just one way that we can try and contribute. The benefit of bringing them forth, obviously, would be to bring them before the city attorney and the judge at a setting where, of course, the victim would have to be notified, right, and have that formal process to ensure that all VRA components are met. So it's a very small contribution, and I certainly am not trying to incentivize folks to miss court. It's just we're all dealing with the backlog and trying our best, to make an effort to clear these cases out.
Okay. I think a lot of people know the system though, and abuse it. Any other further questions or comments? Very well. Thank you very much for your presentation. Appreciate it. Thanks for all you do.
Okay, next slide. And I have bad news for council. That is the last of your lawyers for the evening, so it's all downhill for here. So I apologize in advance for that. Civil Service Commission, you'll see the numbers there for the budget. And they are also participating in the furloughs and travel and training reduction. Matt Kane is available if you have any questions from Matt.
Questions of Matt? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
Next, we'll move through these. So want to kind of highlight the public safety departments here, just letting you know what's there. So on fire, as we've talked about, we have applied for a SAFER grant. That grant would provide funding for a 3-year period. We need to open 2 stations, Station 18 in the Aurora Highlands, Station 19 in Blackstone down south, 17 firefighters per station. The new FTE would need to complete the academy. We would staff Station 18 in 2026. And then staff Station 19 either late in 2026 or early 2027, depending on academy timing, depending on some attrition numbers. But that's what we would do. And then funding for that does include the federal SAFER grant, as well as the general fund city match. We have to then also buy equipment, the breathing apparatus, all the equipment for those stations, as well as the apparatus. That is included in the general fund for 2026. And then Station 19 apparatus is included in the 2027 projection for that. So those are the numbers there. We are going to do 4 furlough days for both career service as well as all of our command ranks. So the chief's office, those folks that aren't 24/7 will be, and not in the bargaining unit, will be doing furlough days. And then they are also taking the reduction in one-time travel and training on the fire side. I can stop for each department, or we could go through and then come back and answer questions. It's the preference of council.
How about if we go through, Councilmember
Okay.
Coombs, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just had one quick question on the travel and training. Would that impact the?
I have to prioritize those. So we have lots of operations across the city. Our commercial driver's license folks, there's required annual training. They have to get that training. Same thing with our paramedic training. Anything that's required for certifications has to be done. So those 25% reductions are going to have to be managed within each department to make sure that they are meeting the legally required training.
Okay. Is there any objection to have the city manager go through all the public safety and then open it up to questions? Seeing no objection, then that's what we'll do.
All right, so next slide. That's it for fire. On police, we do have the addition of 4 FTE. We added 1 crime analyst, and then we also earlier this year went ahead and added 3 career service staff that allows us to redeploy what were formerly uniformed positions. Those include the manager of fleet facilities and equipment, the manager of property and evidence, and the quartermaster back to the line for police duties. So we civilianize those 3 positions, part of a long-standing plan, but this is adding in those FTEs for those civilian positions. The budget also includes kind of truing up our impound auction. So that includes some additional costs associated with that, but that's offset by the additional revenue. The revenue is also reflected there. The other thing we've done is we've refreshed the funding for our impound lot fee, which is the program that council directed a few years ago that victims of motor vehicle theft are not having to pay for the towing and the first few days of storage for their vehicle. So this is making sure we continue to refresh those dollars. And then finally, police is also participating in the 4 furlough days for career staff, command staff, and then are seeing the reduction in travel and training. Next slide. Aurora 911, that as we've highlighted earlier, we are able to lower the general fund subsidy for our 911 operations. We're transferring about $1.1 million from the general fund to the E911 fund. We're covering those costs by continuing to increase the monthly surcharge. The monthly surcharge is currently about $1.80. We're taking it to about $2.15. We'll be bringing those details to council here in the coming few weeks, but that's again set by PUC, and we can give you, as part of that, discussions about where the rest of the agencies across the state are. But again, those dollars have to go to make sure that we are providing 911 services. So that's the big adjustment there for our 911 operation. And then that is it for our, then our, that's it for our public safety. I'll touch on 2 independent offices real quick. According to the ordinance that council passed previously this year related to internal audit, last year, which I want to make sure you guys have full visibility on their budget. I did not reduce their staffing. They are taking the same reductions that everybody else are as it relates to furloughs, travel and training, but otherwise their office is essentially a status quo. And then next slide. This is something I talked about earlier. This is the Office of Police Accountability. This will be an independent office that reports directly to me. And this is, we're reestablishing this. If you all remember a few years ago, Jim had added this in the budget. And then as we went into the consent decree, we went ahead and took that out of the budget with the idea that once we came out of the consent decree, we would be reestablishing that. And the 5 years on the consent decree are up in February of 2027. So the intent is to stand this office up next year, get those positions hired, and plan for coming out of the consent decree. And so that's what this does, is provides staffing. So that'll be the manager of the office and an analyst position, and you'll see the functions that are included there. With that, that is the public safety and functions, and I'm available. I also have Chief Chamberlain, Chief Otten, Tina, as well as Michelle, able to answer any questions you all have about their specific operations.
Councilmember Coombs.
Thank you, Mayor. So in relation to APD, I appreciate seeing the civilianization of those positions, which looks like it makes sense. I know this has been a kind of ongoing multi-year effort to identify positions that are appropriate to be filled by civilians. Is that something that is winding down? Will we anticipate additional civilian positions in future years? And then how does that impact the availability of sworn officers?
Yeah, I'll let Chief Chamberlain, if he's available, talk about that. He's come in with a fresh set of eyes. I think some of the lists we've been working on we did a study a number of years ago. I think that, quite frankly, that study's probably out of date now. And I think the chief probably has the most accurate information and his best eyes on it. When he came to me on these three earlier this year, it made perfect sense. So we moved forward with civilianizing those. So Chief Chamberlain, anything to add on Councilmember Coombs' question?
No, council member, this is something that we're strategically doing throughout the organization and have been throughout the year. We took a business services division, which basically had captain ranks, lieutenant ranks, and officer ranks, civilianized that entire process. These last four that you see that are on staffing, again, it was just part of putting uniformed personnel back in the area of doing police work and not doing administrative functions. It has not compromised our services at all. As a matter of fact, the individuals that have come back into these positions that the city manager identified, they were all prior law enforcement, so they have that experience, plus they have the administrative skills without the impact of not being deployable. So I hope that gives you some solutions. We've pretty much gone through everything that we can civilianize. I think there's still some few spots that I'm looking at. But again, I want to make sure that we're doing it strategically and making sure we're not doing anything that we have to revert back to in a short period of time.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Mayor?
Councilmember Morgan.
Yes, this is for Chief Chamberlain. Just looking at the District 3 budget. I'm trying to see, I know we've had an increase of FTEs. Are we staffed with SROs, and are we staffed with fully staffed for PAR officers in District 3?
Yes, we are. We have our PAR team. Again, that was a big modification that we did when we reallocated resources out of Special Operations Bureau. So we did get them staffed, and that is also with the SROs. Again, we are still, some have middle schools that we are not staffing at this point, but we are staffed at all the high schools that we need to be.
Okay, so we're not sharing SROs with different high schools.
No, we're not.
Okay, good job. Thank you.
Question, Chief. We've never staffed middle schools, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And do you know of any other agency in Colorado that's that you're aware of that staffs middle schools?
Not in Colorado, no. And I know that in other states, they staff them with a rotating basis at some middle schools, but primarily what they have is supplemented by security personnel.
Okay.
But for any major incidents or calls, the SROs will bounce out of the high school and go down to handle those calls. And that's still what we do as well.
Right. But those two districts also, Cherry Creek and Aurora Public Schools, they also have their own security teams, correct?
They do. And we meet quite often and we have great collaboration. And I think that's been part of the success.
Okay. Further questions? Seeing none, thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Okay, if there's no other questions for the public safety group, you guys can be done with me until the end of the presentation, and I will turn it over to Deputy City Manager Laura Perry.
Thank you, Jason. Hi, Mayor and members of City Council. Pleasure to be here tonight to talk you through several departments and the Capital Plan and Development Review Fund for 2026. Next slide. So starting with Library and Cultural Services, which is found on page F125 of your budget book, several changes to highlight for cultural services. First is for the Aurora Fox. For 2026, there will be a reduction in productions from 6 down to 5, but in lieu of that, we'll be adding an additional weekend. So moving from 5 weekends up for an additional weekend. And then next, the Aurora History Museum will be having a reduction in operating hours from 6 days a week to 3 days a week. We are still in the process of finalizing the specific operating plan, but looking at Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, which will be coupled with a consolidation of programming. In addition to the reduction in the number of days, we will be adding a $5 admissions charge. Currently, we are charging $5 we're not currently charging for admission. And by charging admission, that will allow us to unlock the ability to be able to apply for SCFD funding from the state.
Oh, wow.
And then last, as you all are aware, we have and will be reallocating 5 FTEs from Iliff Square and Chambers Library. The reallocation of the FTEs allows the library to optimize existing resources and reallocate about $119,000 annually to strengthen library services and programming, including the opening of the new makerspace at the Martin Luther King Jr. Library, which is anticipated to open right around the corner in November.
Questions or comments on library and cultural services?
I have one, Mayor.
Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, thank you, Laura. I know I asked this, I think, at a different session about when we were talking about the allocation from those 2 library kind of branch libraries to the MLK. I asked about the hours for the other libraries. So are there any changes? I know we have reduced hours like at Towns Reach Library and other libraries, and then I can't remember what our weekend hours are.
Closed on Sunday, but open from 10 to 6 on Saturday.
I'm sorry. And then we're still closed at early on weekdays?
Correct. The opening time is 10 a.m. for libraries.
Until
6 p.m.
Okay. There's no, because of the budget, we're not able to extend those hours at this time, right?
Correct. That would require additional resources and additional FTEs to support the library's scheduling system for their employees across the various branches.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Thanks, Laura, on this section. We'll go to the next.
Okay. Jumping to Parks, Recreation, Open Space. So City Council had a fairly robust conversation at the spring workshop earlier this year. And the items that were approved by Council at the workshop have been built into the budget. And those included a 10% fee increase on recreation memberships, drop-ins, programs, and rentals. And I do want to note this will be coupled with a simplification of the membership structure and standardization of fees across the system, which will improve and support the customer experience with recreation. In addition to that, variable labor was reduced by 3%. And in July, we closed the Beck Recreation Center, which resulted in reduced expenditures in the operating budget, all of which came together and resulted in a reduction in the general fund subsidy by $1.5 million. Next, for the Open Space Fund, I should note the Open Space Fund is supported by tax revenues for open space received from Arapahoe County and Adams County. And these revenues support a lot of our maintenance expenditures and operational expenditures within the parks system. So for open space, Parks is reallocating 4 FTEs total to the open space fund, 2 from the general fund, which currently support the Aurora Sports Park, and 2 forestry FTE from the designated revenue fund to the open space fund. The golf fund is self-sustaining. It's an enterprise fund. So anytime you go golf and you pay a fee to play golf, you're covering the operating costs of the golf system and all of our golf courses. And because of the continued high demand for tee times at the golf courses, golf has had strong revenue performance, and as a result are able to program $3 million to address deferred capital maintenance, needed equipment replacements, and infrastructure improvements to overall improve the patron experience at our golf courses. Next, our Parks Development Fund, continuing the theme of reallocation of expenditures to help the general fund. 1.5 FTE will be moved from the general fund to the Park Development Fund, and these individuals support project delivery for the system. And then last, I did want to touch on capital funding as we were on the pros department. So the 3 projects listed here are funded in the capital fund that I'll speak to in a couple of slides. And the funding for these projects are the result of reallocation of funds to fund these. So all 3 of these are renovations at Meadowood Park for the playground there. Panorama Park will have ADA improvements and renovated amenities, and then our irrigation renovation program, which is comprised of improvements across the system. Any questions on pros?
Questions? Okay.
Okay, touching on the capital projects fund. So you heard from Greg early on that we are experiencing a revenue loss in the capital projects fund, which has resulted in us needing to take a multi-pronged strategy to balance the budget. So for capital, these are found on page G1 of your budget book. The city took a multi-pronged strategy, which include looking at fiscal sustainability. That included a line-by-line evaluation of all capital projects that had been budgeted in prior years. And I should note the capital projects fund is a non-lapsing fund. So in the 5-year plan, appropriation of funds in year 1, if they are not spent, they carry on to the next year, because often capital projects take multiple years to implement. So with that being said, we evaluated existing capital projects and programs, projects that had been completed, that had some budget dust remaining because they are done, and swept all of those budgets together to help close and balance the capital projects fund budget deficit. We also took a look at spending for multi-year capital programs and projects, and there were a couple of programs that had sufficient appropriation to support the completion of capital projects that were planned that did not require an additional appropriation. So several programs, including our citywide medians and our alley paving program, are taking a pause in the 5-year plan for 1 year for appropriation to allow for projects to be completed that are in the queue. Next, there are several strategic capital project and planning investments that are included in the budget. One is the Meadowood renovation. This is a renovation of the Meadowood Center to support a permanent location for Aurora Dance Arts. And Aurora Dance Arts is a popular program with demand. And as a result of this renovation, that program will be able to experience a 30% increase in participation, and therefore also a 30% increase in revenues. And then next, the recreation feasibility study. So with the closure of Beck in July at the spring workshop, we brought forward to council a conversation about the need to do a feasibility study to support the growth of the recreation system, understand gaps in the market for programming and service levels, and truly answer the question of what is next in place of the Beck Recreation Center. Is it one center? Is it two? What's the most viable location? All again in the foundationally to address service levels that were lost from closing that facility. So in the budget, there are funds to support that study. Next, you'll hear from Roberto. We are continuing to complete and deliver major funded capital projects such as the animal shelter and the navigation center. And then the capital projects fund for the budget does maintain funding levels for safety projects and infrastructure maintenance. So continued street paving in our residents and our neighborhoods, building repair and maintenance, signals, and traffic calming projects. Next slide. Continuing to touch on and highlight the capital projects fund. So transportation safety, as I mentioned in the previous slide, funding has been maintained and increased for several programs. So on September 22nd, council is going to receive a presentation outlining a multi-pronged strategy that the city has been taking to address transportation safety that includes engineering, enforcement, and education. A component of that strategy are infrastructure improvements that support traffic calming, traffic operations, and safety across the transportation system. So in the budget, there is over $2 million in the 5-year plan programmed for additional traffic calming projects, as well as traffic operations and safety projects at key intersections in the city along our high injury network and key pedestrian priority corridors. There are also smart signal upgrade funds included that include advanced operations and safety functionality and other fundamental safety upgrades at intersections. And then last, there are several major projects budgeted as well, including the 6th Avenue turn lane extension at Aspen Street in the Buckley Space Force. Buckley Space Force had some operational changes this year that's resulted in traffic backups at this intersection. So we have programmed funds to extend the turn lane to help support flow into the Buckley Space Force space. Funds are included, impact fees funds specifically for the Aurora Parkway Bridge, and also for match funds to support the construction of the Box Elder Creek roadway improvement project. The city received a Protect grant in the amount of $10.8 million, and funds are included for the local match to support the construction and our grant obligations.
Lord, I have a question.
Oh,
yes.
Councilmember Bergen, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Just in the 2 million, you said for traffic calming operations and safety projects, didn't we allocate 2 million just for traffic calming?
No, there's of this 2, there's about 1 million for traffic calming. So about half of it is for traffic calming and half of it for the traffic operations and safety projects.
So what has it been in the past? I can't remember what we allocated for traffic calming.
There's traditionally been a base amount, and then there's been one-time adds to it over the years. So Councilmember Bergen, I can follow up with you with the specific.
Yeah, I thought it was 2 million because it obviously all over the entire city. We have a lot of needs for the signals and for the the applications that come in. So is there any, if we get additional applications for 2026 from residents, are you saying there's just going to be 1 million period for traffic calming applications?
We also have a backlog of projects as well that include roundabouts and some more those higher cost traffic calming measures. Right. So we can't guarantee that those would be funded. There's always an evaluation process that's driven, obviously by engineering standards and a review of speeds and whatnot.
I'd like to know what the backlog is, because I know I have one that's been waiting for over a year to be funded. And it's kind of like, maybe it's going to be funded in 2026. Because I just would like to know what they are, because if we need to take a teeny bit more money out of reserves to take care of traffic safety, I think it's important.
I will pull that information for you.
Thank you.
We'll put it into the packet.
Okay.
Further questions or comments? Thanks.
Okay, so that wraps up the Capital Projects Fund overview and highlights. And so last, touching on the Development Review Fund. So as a reminder, the Development Review Fund is funded from revenues generated from development-related fees and activities that come from plan reviews, permits, and inspections. So as of August 2025, we've seen decreases in development and permit activity to the tune of about a reduction of 27% in new development applications, a reduction in single-family home permits by about 34%. Our new multifamily dwelling permits are down 89%, and then renovation permits are down 24%, all of which compared to 2024 activity. We have been monitoring this very closely since the beginning of the year and have taken some proactive actions to address the reductions in revenues that we're seeing, all of which tally about $5 million for the 2026 budget. Next slide. The actions that we took to balance and reduce expenditures and manage the revenue loss to increase long-term financial sustainability include reduction of contracted services. So currently, we use contracted plan review services, contracted inspection services to augment city staff, and these have been key in helping us keep up with workload and provide on-time plan reviews for the development community. To support the $5 million in loss in revenue, we've reduced contracted services by $2 million. With that, we've been able to maintain an overall 91% on-time average across all areas of the development review process. Next, we are proposing to pass the payment of credit card fees on to customers. So currently, the city is covering the credit card fees for plan submittals and submittals through the development process. This is coming at a cost of about $1.4 million. So a savings measure is a proposal to pass credit card fees on to the customers, but it's important to point out ACH is currently an option for customers and will continue to be a much lower cost option for customers in paying their fees for the development review. And then last, we have been working closely with Aurora Water on analyzing the cost of drainage plan reviews, and we'll be shifting expenditures over a couple of years to the Aurora Water Enterprise Fund to provide for better cost recovery in the Development Review Fund to the tune of about $1.6 million. And that wraps up the Development Review Fund.
Any questions? Seeing none, thanks so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Roberto Venegas. I serve as the Deputy City Manager here in the City of Aurora. As Laura mentioned, I have updates on a couple of capital projects that are reflected in the 2026 budget in the Housing and Community Services Department, as well as an update on the Marijuana Tax Revenue Fund. First, as you know, we are in the process of construction of a new animal shelter. Earlier this month, certificates of participation were successfully issued in early September and will provide approximately $27 million towards the construction costs of the new facility. The remaining construction costs, as reflected in the 2026 budget, will be drawn from general government capital impact fees and capital project funds in the CPF fund. We have a general contractor who's been selected, and an agreement with that firm is anticipated to be finalized by the end of September of this year, which is on schedule for the project. Once that firm is in place, we will start working with them and the staff and our design partner, Animal Arts, to start working on a guaranteed maximum price. The intention is to have that by the end of the year, with hopefully the ability to break ground in 2026 on the new shelter. As a reminder, the estimated cost of the new shelter is $51 million. So while the COPs was successful, it was only for about half of the total project costs. But we do have in our budget in 2026 and ongoing funds appropriated in CPF and the general capital impact fees to cover those costs. So all good news on the animal shelter in terms of its progress and where we're at, and hoping that once we have the contractor in place now, that they can start work with our design team and the staff to deliver us a shelter in hopefully 18 to 24 months. Next slide. The Navigation Center, as you all are aware, we are renovating and currently renovating the former Crown Plaza Hotel. The Navigation Center, bottom line, on time and on budget as of right now. We have our contractor Phipps in place, who's doing the renovation of the facility and working very well this summer to try to get those renovations done. We are still looking at a November opening date. Advance is our operator for the Advance is our nonprofit operator for the facility. They are staffing up and in training and preparation for the fall opening. And they are actually just, I believe, as of last week in the facility and starting to house employees there and ramping up for that opening. As part of the operating agreement, the city is committed, as you know, to the $2 million per year to the anticipated overall operating cost of the facility. But we'll be working actively in partnership with Advance to pursue additional public and private funding to make up that difference in operating costs. That is a difference of what we've been doing in the past. We are really working to be strategic and working with Advance to find additional dollars to handle operating, but we have committed $2 million in general and marijuana funds towards the operating cost of the facility. Councilmember Bergen.
Yes, thank you, Roberto. So I know that we commit that money out of the marijuana monies, the 2 million, which is what, 2%, I think. But my question is, I know when we made this agreement with Advance, the operator, they're responsible for all the operating costs. We commit 2 million. Then on page F86, I guess I'm confused because it has $7 million for 9 FTEs for the homelessness initiative. And then there's intervention. That's, I guess, youth violence. Never mind. But why do we have 9 FTEs if Advance is providing FTEs?
I'll take a look at the section you're looking at. My assumption is those are our existing abatement teams and outreach teams and homeless services teams that we will keep in place. Even though Navigation Center is operating, we still will have an abatement team and a crew that's doing outreach for homelessness services. But I'll have to get back to you to see that exact FTE count. But that's my assumption, is that these are folks that we have that are currently working on services that will be a separate and in partnership with the Navigation Center.
Okay, but and if you could check, because 9 FTEs, I mean, with $7 million, that seems like a pretty high budget for 9 FTEs.
Sure, I will work on the packet to break down those costs.
Great, thanks.
Further questions?
Next slide. Our favorite subject, the Marijuana Tax Revenue Fund. As you all are aware, that revenue has been in a steep decline over the last few years, but we have seen some leveling off in that fund. In 2026 and in subsequent years, marijuana revenue is projected to be sufficient for our CPF commitments. As you know, we provide debt service for a couple of recreation centers. So we have budgeted for those commitments. One unfortunate impact on this fund is that as part of the state's budget balancing during the legislative session, they reduced the share back of tax revenue from 10% to 3.5%, which equates to about a $2 million decrease in transfer to the capital projects fund. So we have budgeted for that and are aware of that, and it's an unfortunate, But as the state was balancing their budget, that was a trickle down effect. So we have accounted for that in the capital projects fund, that decrease. Councilmember Bergen.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Talking to myself. So there's not an IGA that guarantees that we get 10% from the state that they had to abide by. They're able to just reduce it.
Yeah, as part of their budget balancing process, they are able to do that without us being able to claw that money back. Yes, that is their prerogative.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
Just one other, just for 2026 and outgoing years, the revenue from the marijuana funds for homelessness and youth violence, as you know, we have the 2% and 1% ordinances commitments respectively. Those are also projected to be sufficient to meet those commitments and have been part of the 2026 balancing. So those have been accounted for. And I think that is all I have. So I'll stand for any of the questions.
Other question? Thanks, your brother.
Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, Mayor, Council, we are almost done. This is Marshall Brown, General Manager of Aurora Water. You've already heard from the Citizen Water Advisory Commission tonight, and you saw the pie charts in Greg's presentation. So I'm just going to fill in a couple of details and then see if you have any questions. So first slide. Okay, so the 2026 proposed budget, you will note, is lower than the 2025 proposed budget. The actual 2025 budget came in lower than the proposed. This is through the joint management of our debt with our finance partners and budget office. So we are still in need of future debt issuances, and some of that will show up later this year, as was talked about in the wastewater fund, and then probably 2 years out, late 2026, maybe into 2027 for water. But a couple of things in the 2026 budget of note, we are proposing the addition of 3 new positions. One is embedded in the attorney's office. As Pete mentioned earlier, we are converting one of our outside counsel to inside internal staff, adding them to the water attorney team. That will provide a cost savings. In the initial year, it's going to be a wash. Long-term, the savings, though, there will add up. Second position is in the planning and engineering group. That is for the Wild Horse project that was mentioned earlier. We keep moving forward with that project, hoping to get that done sooner than later so the costs quit going up. And then finally, the third new position is associated with our Arkansas Valley Farms purchase. We have a tour coming up down there on October 3rd to show everybody what's going on there. But we're adding a position to help manage the contracts down there. We do have a contract farmer in place, a lot of farming operations, and the cost of that position will be offset with revenues associated in the lease back to the farmer. So next slide highlights our capital in the water program. You again saw the pie chart. We have a large $1.4 billion 5-year capital program. The largest cost there is tied to the Wild Horse Reservoir. That's again anticipated to be about $1 billion project. We have $400 million built into the 5-year CIP. We've already expended over $50 million, so we do have some future money we'll have to program there in the later years of construction. A couple of other things to note on here. Our Rampart pipelines, those are the 2 pipelines that bring our raw water from the mountain supply over to Aurora Reservoir, are 60 years old, and we are having to replace and rehabilitate those. So that's not an insignificant cost shown in here as well. We do have some additional money programmed for water rights acquisitions, Prairie Waters, continued expansion, updating our treatment facilities. That's focused primarily on Griswold and Wemlinger that are about 50 years old as well. So asset management programs that are covering or have needs we're going to have to cover there. So next slide highlights our wastewater capital projects, and that fund, that program is much smaller, 184 million over the next 5 years. We do have a lot of new sewer line construction up in primarily the northeast area of the city associated with growth and development. That's the largest single line item there. We also have some asset management projects. As a reminder, both of these funds operate as enterprise funds, so growth-related projects are paid for by connection fees, as Janet Marlowe highlighted earlier, and operation and maintenance is covered by rates that we touched on earlier as well. Finally, the stormwater fund, you see we have about 82 of that 184 million, and the wastewater fund is associated with stormwater. That's also primarily or significantly associated with growth. There are some asset management costs in there as well, but a majority of that is growth related. So with that, happy to answer any questions about capital or operating budgets in the enterprise funds of the water utility.
Questions of Marshall?
Marshall?
Yes.
And we're doing pretty well on getting grants, right? As much as we possibly can.
Yes, thank you for that question, Councilmember Bergen. We are pursuing grants. We are bringing to council next Monday, actually, we have to get council approval to accept our most recent grant, which is roughly $18 million associated with constructing PFAS treatment, ion exchange treatment facilities associated with our Cherry Creek well field. So we are happy to have been awarded that grant. We've also received some other grants recently and are in the process of pursuing a green energy grant associated with some of our solar installations. And we have some valves now where we're recovering energy rather than just dropping pressures. We're now recovering energy as we drop pressures in our distribution system. So we're pursuing another $800,000 grant there. So yes, we are pursuing grant opportunities and we are seeing success there. As large as our budgets are, while they're important, they're relatively small percentages of our costs.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further questions? Seeing none, thanks, Marshall.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so Mayor and Council, that concludes our presentation for tonight. As a reminder on our process, this is our schedule. You'll see there we did our presentations tonight. Monday night, we will have an item on the regular meeting, which is our public invited to be heard on the 2026 proposed budget. That's a charter requirement, so we'll have that. Saturday, October 4th, we will have our workshop where council will make any changes and provide us additional direction on the budget. And then we'll bring those forward to council for adoption after that. As a reminder, as we've noted a couple of times tonight, that we've taken notes on questions, and you can go to the next slide, that you can either give us any more questions you have tonight, or you can email me or Greg, and we will include those questions in our packet. We take these all down and we provide all this information to council, so you all have it in advance of the workshop, and you have the information you need to finally craft the 2026 adopted budget. So with that, are there any other questions for myself or the staff here?
No, I would just say congratulations on a balanced budget. Thanks for working so hard on it.
Thank you, sir. Like I said, I noted at the beginning, a lot of hard work went into this year. We've got a great team, and you all are a big part of that.
Yep.
Thank you all again for your foresight a number of years ago to set aside those recession reserves. It certainly made the difference this year.
Any other questions? Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.